Okay, what is up, guys? Sorry for the delay. Everything went wrong for the first time right before this debate, so it should be interesting. We wanted to give you guys a chance to get here. So, this is the long-awaited debate that has been requested by everyone 1,000 times. So here we are. Jared and I are going to be debating, is the Earth a globe? Um, so yeah, I'll just go ahead and hand it over to the moderator, which is Sean Griffin from Keenan Context.
Welcome, everyone. This is the infamous debate, Is the Earth a Globe? Jeran Campanella of Jeranism, Austin Whitsitt of Whitsitt Gets It. Austin, do you have the screen? It shows just you right now.
Well,
Is
for
that what
them,
you
it
want?
shows all three of us.
Okay. Okay.
You just can't see.
So welcome, everyone. This is possibly round one of this epic debate going down tonight. Is the Earth a globe? And I think Jeran Campanella is going to be in the affirmative position. So he's going to go first. The format for the debate will be 10-minute openings, 7-minute rebuttals, followed by 30 minutes of open cross-exam between the two interlocutors. And then we're going to be taking questions from the audience for a 30-minute Q&A. So be sure to hold your questions till about midway through the debate. That way they don't get lost in the abundance of questions flowing in. And Jeran, if you're ready, we can go ahead and hear your opening.
Yep, I'm gonna set my timer so I have a little clock here going. And we'll be good to go. Okay, and we said 10 minutes. Okay. We will, can we edit this one? Good enough. All right, and let me know, can you just tell me when we have like 5 minutes and then 1 minute or something?
Can do.
Thank you much. Are we good to go?
Yeah, I'll start the time when you start your speaking.
Sounds good. All right, so thanks everybody for being here. Obviously, thanks for inviting me, Austin. Thanks for moderating, Sean. I know it was last second. Much appreciated. So, and let me begin by saying hello to the former colleagues, friends I have. I wish it was under better circumstances. Unfortunately, as you know, tonight I'm debating somebody I once stood next to in the flat earth community, Austin Whitsitt. We ran summits, Globebusters. We spoke at conferences. We used a microphone and speaker at Venice Beach. We claimed to seek truth, and the same I thought could be said for all of you. Originally, the difference is that I actually meant it. Others did as well. They've escaped the flat earth. We weren't here for a social movement. While I might agree with the ideas of that, those can be done in other ways. We were here for truth and a scientific truth. Once that truth is gone, that's it, game over. So I spent a decade researching, presenting, defending the flat earth model. Why? Well, because I thought it was true. So sadder still, Austin and I both went on a trip in December to do what we both thought was helping the flat earth, and in my mind at least, by showing strong evidence for or against it. When I encountered the real world observations that flat earth can't explain, I didn't ignore it. I tested it. I went down, took action. I went to Antarctica, watched a 24-hour sun with my own eyes, circled for 4 days. It wasn't NASA. It wasn't Dave Weiss's plasma sun that he got from a Microsoft whistleblower. It's not hearsay. It's a real observation, 100% above board, despite what you hear from all the great flat earth researchers. And what did I find? I found a model that predicts and explains and matches reality exactly. And it sure as hell isn't the flat model. I thought people would be adults and we would say we were wrong when the evidence was dropped in our lap. And thanks to Robbie, Paul, Patricia, Austin Thompson, Alex Stein, and the others. And there's still some more people who want to remain unnamed, and still others that maybe nobody knows their names. So I'm happy at least that people can admit when they're wrong. But yes, for nearly a decade, I was one of the most vocal proponents of this theory about flat earth, and it's sad to be here. I know there's a lot of people that I respect very much who are speaking at this event, who have been friends of mine for a long time, haven't talked to them in 6 months because they abandoned me just like everybody else, because I went down to Antarctica and came back and told you the truth. Can you imagine? You're all truthers, and you turned your back on me for going on a trip and telling you the truth. So what do you think that does to my opinion of the truthers of the flat earth? But what separates me from the community is exactly that I will follow the evidence even if it leads me somewhere uncomfortable. I'm not here representing NASA. I'm not here on behalf of any government. I'm just here on my own telling you my observations and what they mean to me. What is this debate not about, I guess, is, let me get to this part. So my opponent, obviously Austin, I think Austin's sharp. I think he's articulate. I think he's smart. I think he's undeniably passionate. I used to admire that passion, and I do, but I think that the passion without precision is just noise. Austin's approach is a philosophical approach, I believe, more than it is scientific. And here's what we can expect Austin to do tonight, at least in my opinion. He's not going to answer my questions because he's going to leave us with no picture of how the world works or how it looks or how it operates. No idea of its layout, no understanding or no clue about how anything works. He won't offer any explanations since flat Earth doesn't have any. It will instead say the default position is that we live on a flat plane. But throughout history, we've already corrected that error. The globe is a counterintuitive suggestion. I agree with that. However, it is true. So he also won't at any time offer a working map or model, won't provide a model that matches all known observations, won't explain how you can have circumpolar stars in the south, seen from the continents, the 3 continents, explain why the north at 80 degrees are seeing an inverse but identical observation today that we made 6 months ago to the day, predict sunrise and sunset times for every location on Earth with a flat Earth geometry, or tell us how the sun stays visible for 24 hours at a time in Antarctica unless he invokes refraction or reflection.
Jeran, real quick, Jeran, I paused the time for you. Before we started, you said you were going to minimize yourself. Are you thinking you're showing something right now?
No, I'm not showing anything yet.
Okay.
I'll get
all right. Go.
Yeah.
I'll resume the time.
Okay, thanks. So one of the biggest problems is that I've seen is that the flat Earth has become somewhat of a cult. So why did I leave it? Well, I left it not because I was debunked, not because I lost a debate or because I was paid off or because I was got tired of fighting. I left because I did something that very few in this community are willing to do. That's testing our conception of the Earth. Think of what the flat Earth has brought in 10 years. It's been 10 years. We have brought nothing to the world. We have invented nothing. We have increased the knowledge of nothing. We have just spun our wheels and ran on a hamster wheel and then got off and been like really proud of ourselves. But when you look back, you didn't go anywhere. You didn't do anything. We didn't bring anything to the world. And there's a certain point where you need to say, hey, shouldn't we have something by now? Shouldn't we have something? So I tested my conception of the Earth. I went to Antarctica. I witnessed the 24-hour sun. I saw it with my own eyes. It means that the South is not a lie. We'll get into that. But let's talk about the so-called research that was done around the response to the final experiment. Spoiler alert, there wasn't any. No investigation, no travel, no counter experiments, just knee-jerk denial, memes, name-calling, lazy live streams from basements with the globe in the trash and Dave Weiss's app back on a digital Ouija board. Instead of being met with genuine curiosity, my trip to Antarctica, something this community has claimed that they wanted for years. This was something that people pushed for, wanted, said was impossible. We went and did it, but instead it was treated like betrayal. Why? Because I didn't come back with a blurry GoPro clip of an ice wall. Instead, I came back with something far more dangerous to flat Earth, and that's the truth. I watched the sun circle my head for 4 straight days. I recorded it. We live streamed it. We showed angles, timestamp shadows, sun spots, you name it, all things that wouldn't exist as we saw them on a flat Earth. And so what do I get for that? Shill, actor, Freemason, CGI, the usual default settings of belief systems that can't survive contact with reality. This has opened my eyes to what the truth community really is. If this is the kind of research that they do about the Antarctic trip, then think of all the things that I thought they were researching correctly before. And it becomes a little bit like a cult when you can't question the doctrine, you can't update the model, you can't accept conflicting evidence, and you sure as hell can't leave if you notice that. It's Scientology with memes, basically. So here's my evidence focus area. Number 1, I want to remind everybody that today's date is 6 months to the day that we filmed the 24-hour sun. Why is that important? Well, because we can actually go watch the time lapse of the sun circling us right to left in the south. If we went today to Google Earth and we went to 80 degrees north, we would see the exact opposite observation in the sky. Everything identical, 35 degrees at its high, 15 degrees at its low, moving left to right this time. So how is it that we have places in the world that are symmetrical and upside down from each other? There's only one shape that could possibly be, and it's not flat. If the Earth is flat, the South has to be a lie, period. There's no getting around that. You can't have an opposite of the North like we're taught, and then say that the Earth is flat, but it still works that way. No, it wouldn't work that way. So if we went down there and we saw that the South was not a lie, then that's pretty good evidence that the Earth is what we were taught. So if you're unaware of it, it's time you figured it out. If the Earth is flat, then the South cannot be what we were taught. Therefore, if it is exactly what we were taught, then guess what the shape of the Earth is? So in December 2024, I knew the following. The South is either a lie or we were wrong. So I decided to take a free trip to check. And throughout this debate, I will be focusing on a few main points. Each of them is a dagger in the heart of the flat Earth model. It's the reason that I switched. It sucks. It's the last thing anybody wants to do. It's the worst thing I've ever had to do. However, I'm a truther. So despite the people yelling and screaming and the people lying about me, so-called truthers, Steve Falconer blocking me, or, you name it, Dave Weiss blocking me, no contact, these people are not truthers. If they were truthers, wouldn't you want to know what Jeran has to say? This guy was a flat earther for 10 years and now he's flipped. Let's listen to him. Nope. Instead, you all blocked me. You all refuse to listen because you're in an echo chamber. That's what you've built for yourself. It's the only way flat earth survives is if you sit in that echo chamber and repeat each other and pretend that Steve Falconer's video did anything other than prove the globe. The South Celestial Pole is visible from the South continents. It rotates just like the North Celestial Pole, but clockwise instead. The South Pole itself is a geographic location. It's verified by directional convergence and solar angles. The reverse sun and moon motion, easily explained by simply saying the word sphere. Tropic of Capricorn behavior, curving to the left, not to the right, easily explained by saying the word sphere. Southern star trails, matching observations that only make sense with a spherical rotating Earth. Circumpolar stars in the south that would never work on a flat Earth, impossible, but they work perfectly when you say the word sphere. Sunrise and sunset, left to right, setting and rising, predicted on a globe, unexplainable, and a paradox on flat Earth. The apparent fake second refracted something cop-out sun is basically the only out that the flat Earth has, is to introduce apparent suns, second suns, third suns, reflected suns, even though that's not how the world works. So my final thoughts is, thank you, Austin, I know you too want the truth. So being that we saw the same thing, I think it's time that we figure out how you can see differently than I do now. If the globe accounts for every single observation that we saw on the trip, and the flat Earth didn't account for any, it failed, it was disproven, it was falsified, then I have to ask you, Austin, why you would remain in the camp that has nothing, and is that still you being a truther? But at the end of the day, I have something that he does not really. It's an explanation that actually works. So to the audience, I'm not asking you to believe me. I just ask you to think, to test, to observe, to not just discount me outright. Listen, learn, and take it in, and then go and do your own observations. I've got evidence tonight that you can do on your own. You don't need NASA. You don't need authority. You can figure out by the end of today what the shape of the Earth is. And we were wrong. It's okay. Guess what? I'm a truth seeker. I told you guys that we were looking for the shape of the Earth. We found it. Let's move on. Let's get over it. Let's get past it. Thank you.
All right, you are, muted.
Yep.
So I'm trying to make sure we're right here. So it's rebuttals right now. Do I do my opening right now or my rebuttal?
Not sure.
You do your opening now, and
Okay.
then you guys will do your rebuttals, starting with Jeran.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Let me replace. Okay, cool. I don't have a timer. Here, I'll set a timer.
I got a timer here.
Okay, yeah, just let me know when I'm getting close or whatever, and it's cool.
Yeah, I'll call out the 1 minute mark.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna do this anyway. All right. Okay, cool. All right, so yes, Jeran and I are obviously have been friends for quite a while, and it is somewhat poetic that we're doing this at the summits, which we used to run together, and we did indeed go to Antarctica. So I am going to have to it's a debate, and so I'm just going to have to do what we do in debates. So I will lay this out, and I'll save a lot of the stuff I maybe would have said for the rebuttal period. But to lay out kind of the issue with the South Pole claim and what happened in Antarctica, right? It's really simple. It's just an illogical premise, right? Because it affirms the consequent. And in its core, it's an appeal to incredulity. This is why I did not flip to the globe. That is my answer, is that to maintain logical consistency, I could not have flipped on all of the logical foundation, the evidences, the refutations, simply because I, at one point, didn't understand how something worked. If I were to say, oh, well, I can't see how this would work on a flat Earth, therefore it can't be flat, therefore it must be a globe, that's called an appeal to incredulity, meaning I don't understand it, so it can't be true. And this is a very dangerous fallacy, right? This if we applied that standard to everything else in the world, then we would have never made any type of progression. So that's like my core issue with it is the people I have seen flip when I ask them, they're just articulating to me that they don't understand how it could work on a flat Earth. And that kind of leads into the next part, right? Which is that they shift the burden that I would say that the globe holds over to me or a flat earther, right? Shifting the burden of proof. which is the person that challenges or denies your positive assertion, you're asking them to prove that it isn't true. So yes, it is correct. I will say that the flat earth is the default position because it is. I think Jeran is going to be honest, more honest than most people, right? So when we typically debate this conversation, so I would imagine he would acknowledge that the default position is that the Earth's a stationary plane. He said that we figured it out over time that we've been able to replace it. Like we can discuss that, right? But the default position is that the Earth is stationary. The default position is that the Earth is a topographical plane. We utilize it as such, like for almost everything that we do, for transportation, for civil engineering. We actually build that way. We fly planes that way. Like we have to utilize it as a plane. We actually measure elevation vertical, perpendicular to a horizontal baseline that is the sea level, the horizontal datum, and it goes on and on. There are many evidences that we live on a plane, but it is the default position. Therefore, just logically speaking, to claim that the antithesis of that is true, right? The opposite of that, it has the burden of proof. I don't really think that Jeran is denying that. I think he's saying that he thinks it's been satisfied. But the only issue is that if you didn't go to satisfy that burden, it cannot be an articulation of an appeal to incredulity because you don't understand how it could work on a flat earth. It can't be, well, if I assume that Earth's a globe, this makes perfect sense. It makes more sense to me than whatever I would think of a flat earth. I had reified a model prior to this, and therefore, since it doesn't work with the reification of my prior model, it can't be flat, it must be globe. These are just fallacious, and this is the very issue that's got us into this free falling through an infinite vacuum infinitely at 66,600 miles per hour nonsense that we currently were told is true. This is the very line of reasoning that got us into the ever-expanding Copernican model that people believe to be true. Now, I don't know Jeran's specific position now. I don't know if he's a geocentrist or not, et cetera, but we're talking specifically more about the shape. Is it a globe is the question. So I'm going to list off some evidences. I just want to make that very clear that, like, on its face, a stationary topographical plane is the default position based on empirical evidence. The antithesis of that would be that it's actually a globe, that it's a sphere, that the Earth is bending convexly at a certain rate, and therefore it has the burden of proof. And if you point to the sky and say, well, if we were on a sphere, when I get over to the other side of it, everything would be upside down. And since this stuff looks upside down, therefore the Earth has to be a sphere, because I can't understand how that would work on a flat Earth. That isn't a sufficient argument. That is affirming the consequent, shifting the burden, reifying your model, begging the question, and more importantly, it's just an appeal to incredulity. That's what it is. So that's why I don't resonate with it at all. So I'll list off some of the evidences of how we know that it is flat. It is a default position. Any positive claim requires the burden. And I actually don't resonate with people that just say stuff in the sky doesn't matter and they throw their hands up. And I can understand even Jeran's frustration with that, because I don't resonate with that at all. I think that we should always try to understand the way that things work. We should always seek out answers. We shouldn't try to look at this as some type of little gotcha game where we don't have to answer that. Haha. But it is true that just because I observe a celestial phenomena, it doesn't then make all other evidences dissipate, right? So what we look at the preponderance of evidence, we have to stay logically consistent, and we have to see what the empirical evidence actually says, and then we go and test it, and we see what the answer is. We don't throw out 95% of evidence because there's 1 or 2 or 10 outliers that we don't know how to currently explain. So I would say one of the really strong pieces of evidence that we live on a plane is something that we recently found out, which is if you actually take angle measurements to stars, say from a ground and from the surface of the Earth, you're going to see that the star gets occulted by the mountain. As soon as that moment happens, you can take the time, you can measure that angle, and you can compare it to the angle of, like, say in Stellarium, at that exact time you took the time measurement, as soon as the star was occulted, you can then go to the mountain, compare that angle, and it is as if it is planar geometry. It matches perfect. The flat Earth prediction to that star matches perfect, whereas the globe, it would be an entirely different position, many degrees different. And the issue is that they would then have to try to claim refraction, but the star has already been occulted prior to the measurement, so refraction can't even be applicable. So the actual occultation of the star in relation to topography, and the guy that initially went and made this measurement was a glober. He went out there and he saw that the prediction is, you can predict it perfectly with flat Earth, doesn't match the globe at all, and refraction didn't work. He ended up leaving the globe. So it's very similar experience to what Jeran experienced, only he went the other way, right? So that just is a piece of evidence, and there is no sufficient rebuttal I've heard for the globe. We can also talk about the linear distribution of the electrical field. We actually have an electrical field on the Earth, and it's a linear distribution, horizontal field lines of the electrical field. This cannot happen. It has to be a radial distribution on a sphere, and it would actually fall off exponentially away from the center, but that's not what we observe. We don't observe that. The linear distribution of the electrical field is a major issue. It's an impossibility on a sphere. right? So what typically happens, I'm guessing that we're getting close to my time. So I got a few more minutes. So what typically happens is it is what we've always experienced. And this is why I will be very blunt. I'm quite perplexed about Jeran's approach. Like I was there with him. To all the people that are saying that he's faking, he's not. I was there. I am in no way going to attack Jeran's character in terms of if I think that he believes this or if he's being honest. I think that he does believe it. He does feel like he's being honest, and he feels that he's willing to take shots and attacks to do it. So that aside, because that doesn't really matter. Take all the personal stuff out of it. We're trying to figure out actually like what the truth is. Yes, I went to the south. We went to what is seemingly Antarctica, a giant sheet of ice south from Punta Arenas. We saw the sun and it circled around us and it didn't go down. So then to claim that that proves that it's a globe, I would have to say if the Earth's a sphere, in the winter when I go to Antarctica, the sun will be in the sky for 24 hours. Oh, look, sun stays in the sky, does a circle for 24 hours, therefore Earth's a globe. It's a textbook affirming the consequent. Textbook affirming the consequent fallacy. I could say Sasquatch delivers me mail every Friday. I could go find out that there's mail in my mailbox on Friday, therefore Sasquatch is real. To apply that type of logic, it is an infinite regression. You would never find truth. So this is the reason why I haven't flipped. It's because of the empirical evidence, and we could list them off, and it's endless, right? Just the base empirical position, the default position based on empirical evidence that the Earth's flat. How are we even actually making accurate elevation angle measurements in the center of a continent if we're using a horizontal datum, a horizontal baseline that starts at the sea that's thousands of miles away? We extend that horizontally to the center of a continent and then measure a vertical distance above that, perpendicular to it. How is it that planar geometry is perfectly predicting and matching the angle to that star once it's occulted by the mountain and matches the based on the time of the observer standing on the top of the mountain? You can draw a straight line from observer to top of the mountain to star, and it perfectly matches an angle down to a horizontal baseline with planar geometry, where it's significantly different on a globe, but yet the star's not where it's supposed to be. And we can't invoke refraction because it's after the star is occulted.
1 minute.
So I will say, basically, what always happens is people say, well, then how would this work, this work, this work, this work? And if I don't get my answers, then you lose, Earth's a globe, as if we are to grant them the presupposition of a model that they have reified. That is not how it works logically. So yes, in conclusion, the Earth default position is as a stationary topographical plane. The burden of proof is on the other side and needs to prove it. And when there's direct geometric refutations to that claim, they cannot be hand waved because there's another celestial observation that you think is better explained by that model that was just refuted, right? We can't actually skip over to that part. So that is very simply my position. And I think that it's based on the logical parameters of how we actually examine the discussion in the first place. So.
And time.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, Austin.
Mhm.
All right, gentlemen. The next part of the debate is the rebuttals. And so we're going to afford Jeran 7 minutes to rebut to what he just heard.
So this is just me presenting myself. Okay, gotcha. It's not asking questions. That'll be okay. Gotcha.
You're just going to respond to what Austin said.
Okay, thanks.
All right, let me add you to the full screen. All right, you're good.
Okay, so the issue I have there is that the way Austin's describing it, he's saying that if nobody can explain how something works, well, it doesn't mean it's not true. But we would never get to the truth if that were the case. If the case were that anything could be true, even if it doesn't have any explanation, doesn't explain anything, but somebody just says, well, I think it's true, because that's basically what he's saying, is that if we have different ideas on the shape of the Earth, he's saying it doesn't make a difference if one of them makes all the predictions and the other one makes none, because simply because you don't know how it works doesn't mean it's false. Oh, then that would be true for anything. So I think we live on a dog, and then you might say, well, that wouldn't work. How could we live on a dog? And I'd say, well, just because you don't understand how it works doesn't mean it's not true. So, I mean, we could do that forever. We could live on anything then. I mean, you have a group of things that you look at, and then you find out which one better matches the observations. Now, for me, the flat Earth better matches observations when you're talking about the Earth looks flat. It operates and appears flat. And everything we do is with the flat Earth. That's because no matter where you're at, it's flat. So you can treat the Earth completely and totally like it's a flat plane. And that's how you best do it. When you're flying a plane, when you're building a bridge, when you're building a canal, if you took the curvature of the Earth into account, it wouldn't make any sense, because where we build is level. So we use a spirit level where we're at, and that is a level plane where it is. And yes, down the road that way or that way are not quite still level with where you're at, but that's not needed in any walk of life. We don't ever look down the way and say, oh, how do we line up with that? We just build a canal, we just build a bridge, we just build where we're at, we use a spirit level, and that's how it works on a sphere. You said that, I guess where I was confused, if all observations match predictions, then that's where you live. So I don't know how to better explain this, is that if you're given a map of your apartment complex and you're asking, hey, where's the laundry room? And they say, here's the map. And outside of your door, they show a pool, but there's no pool in front of you. You can then at that point take the map back to the office and say, this map is incorrect because it doesn't match observations. So we have a map like that. It's called the AE map, and it no longer matches the observations. Therefore, you can take it back to the office and say, hey, this map doesn't work anymore. And then you can take the globe and you can say, well, how about this one? And Austin mentioned going down to 80 degrees and seeing Punta Arenas and blah, blah, blah. And then he said, but that doesn't mean that the Earth's a sphere. Well, what it points out is that every single location that you or I have ever been to, and I dare say every single location that anybody watching this debate has been to, matches the observations given to us by mapping the Earth on a sphere. It does not match any flat plane, doesn't match any cylinder or pyramid. It matches a sphere. The Earth is mapped on a sphere. You can call any of your friends, no matter where they live, and ask them, hey, can you go check and see if the sunrise, sunset comport to this model and this prediction? And their answer every single time will be yes. We have Google Earth, which has never been disproven by one person. It doesn't get the angles of the sunrise and sunset wrong. It gets them right, and it's based on a sphere model. You talked about the celestial theodolite, but you need stellarium to even talk about it. So again, now you're using a globe Earth spherical system in order to tell me that the Earth is flat by using the numbers that the sphere system gives you. I'm not even going to go down that road. That seems to be preposterous on its face. Electrical field on the Earth, I don't know what you mean by linear distribution. You mean that it's, I guess I don't know what you mean. It goes up in a linear fashion, I guess is what you mean. So I don't know why that wouldn't work on a sphere. As I said, wherever you're at is level. So therefore, above my head would be a linear progression of electrical field. Doesn't make a difference if the Earth's a sphere because it doesn't matter for where I'm at. You said we went south, we had a giant sheet of ice. Yeah, we did, but you have to remember we saw the sun south of us, and that refutes any flat Earth that's ever existed and will ever exist. That's the thing that people don't realize about this flat Earth. There'll never be another map, not for the rest of your life, not for the rest of your children's lives. There is no other way to map the Earth on a flat plane other than the AE map. That's it. And once the AE map has been falsified, we're done. It's time to get out. You can go back to the drawing board if you want and play around. I did that for 6 months and realized that's it. There's no more. If the sun circles in Antarctica, then it matches all observations of the sphere, and that's what it did. And the you said about the firming consequent, where I'm confused on that is, haven't you said before, Nathan Oakley and many people, they all say that the R value has been falsified, that the globe has been falsified. When you ask them why, they say if the Earth is a sphere of blankety blankety blank, and right, and then it's distance to the horizon is 1.22 times the square root of right. Then the Earth's so then they're doing the same thing. So now the number one evidence of the flat Earth that you guys use, the black swan, is in affirming the consequent. You just said that. If it's not, then why can't somebody say, if the Earth is a sphere and the sun does this, then we would see this in the south and we'd see that, therefore the Earth's a sphere. If that's not allowed, then neither is saying that the horizon is a little bit higher than it should be on that black swan. Which, by the way, I believe that guy Bo, who did that observation, says that he went out there every day for 6 months and then he saw that observation. So now the flat Earth is using a 1 day out of 6 month observation and going around telling people that that's proof that the Earth has been falsified. That's a joke. It's a literal joke that we would ever think an anomaly, meaning that 1 day out of, what would that be, 180, has an observation that makes the Earth flat. And so we're going to go around telling people that the globe Earth has been falsified because of an anomaly. That's crazy. So I think if you have different ideas about the shape of the Earth, which we did, again, I thought that the South was a lie. I thought that they were lying about the southern 24-hour sun. I thought they were lying about what happens south of the 60. That's why I thought they had the Antarctic Treaty. And guess what? I was wrong. When we go down there, we saw that the angles matched perfectly in Punta Arenas. They had the sun going right to left. Again, people need to consider this. If you're on a flat Earth and you're at the south of South America, how is the sun going left? How is the sun going to the south? Guess what? There's a model that says the sun will go left, the sun goes south, it goes around the bottom of the Earth, comes back south of east. And that's exactly what we saw. So the globe Earth provides a, and again, I'll fully admit 100%, the globe is counterintuitive, but so is bugs in your tummy. So are a lot of things that we realize now are true. Go take a microscope and pull some bile out of your stomach and you're going to see little swimming creatures. Now, you don't feel like they're in there, but they are. So the globe Earth is the same. You may feel like the Earth's flat. We may feel like There is no curvature. However, we just don't understand large spheres. A sphere can be so big, 24,901 miles in circumference, that you can't tell that it's curved because we're too small. That's how the Earth is a sphere and how it is kind of beautifully created, because you don't have to treat it like it's a sphere. It actually doesn't matter to your life. If you want to be a flat earther, that's fine, but get out of scientific studies, get out of scientific debates, because you don't have the kind of evidence to go up against a globe. You have to better present the world than the globe does. And the flat earth can't explain anything. So that's basically it. You get my time?
And time.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Jeran, for your rebuttal. And next is Austin. You have 7 minutes as your rebuttal. I'll start the timer when you begin talking.
All right, cool. All right, so to rebut your opener and kind of some of the stuff you said right there, I'm just going to list off kind of what's wrong with these arguments. Okay, so we have, again, like I described actually earlier, we have shifting the burden of proof. That's when you make a positive claim. If someone challenges or denies your positive claim, you then tell them they have to prove it. Meaning, if we challenge or deny your claim that the reason that we see that the sun's up in the sky doing a circle for 24 hours is actually because we're tilted antipodal to someone on the other side of this presupposed globe, that actually the sun is 93 million miles away and there's an empty vacuum between us, and therefore, because all of the stars are at such immense distances that we don't ever see them, and that perspective doesn't actually affect where we see them, even though it moves just as if it would be because of perspective like everywhere else. And then about 5 more presuppositions. And you actually require these presuppositions to claim that geometric position of you on the globe is why you see the sun do that. So you list all of those off and then say, if that's not the case, which most of the people defending the globe, they just expect this to be granted. They very conveniently omit that it requires that many presuppositions to even then affirm the consequent that viewing the sun is that way. Right? You have to view all of those, you have to claim all of those presuppositions and reify them, presuppose them, and then affirm the consequent to address the idea that we're doing the same thing. We are not, right? Like the black swan argument, for example, was if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3,959 miles and the geometric physical horizon is at 1.225 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, it is not. So therefore, the Earth is not a sphere. That is a falsification of a positive claim, as opposed to affirming the consequent, which is if the Earth's a sphere, we'll see the sun be in the sky for 24 hours. We see the sun in the sky for 24 hours. Therefore, Earth is a sphere. That's affirming the consequent, making a positive claim, presupposing the actual thing in question, and then just affirm it because of the outcome, like the actual observation itself. Right. So as if to exclude any alternative possibility. This is why it's logically fallacious. Right. And then, of course, like the straw man of like, it could be a dog. No, the position specifically is that we physically, empirically measure the surface. We utilize the surface to actually be a topographical plane. And then I listed off specific reasons why we have to utilize it to be a plane in the first place. And we can talk more about the positive evidence. I want to just specifically rebut these things. So we have shifting the burden of proof, affirming the consequent. Your whole opening really was like poisoning the well as well, right? Kind of like a hasty generalization, because there certainly are some people that act that way within the idea of flat Earth, hasty generalization fallacy to put them all together, then kind of a stereotype fallacy, right, to describe what we all are, right, and then a genetic fallacy because those people are like that, anything coming from them must not be true, and then these fallacies are packed into one, and then you use that to poison the well the entire time, right, which is incredibly fallacious. And there were lots of ad homs in there, and then a lot of people that are not here, and I'm not going to answer for what they did or didn't say. I do also know, like, in good faith, I'll acknowledge that there's obviously a lot of context and history kind of leading up to this debate and what a sad one, Jeran. You did say that you tested it and tried to explain it for 6 months, and then you decided, well, really right when we got back, you started saying that the Earth was a globe. It wasn't that you tested it and looked for alternative explanations. Okay. There you go. 6 months before. So okay, and then begging the question, it's kind of the same thing as affirming the consequence, just an informal, right? And then it was a lot of kind of an appeal to an emotion, right? It's really kind of irrelevant how these people acted. They all turned on me as well, arguably more. And this is a big one. It's a false dilemma. It's a false dichotomy, which is either it's that AE map or it's my presupposed globe and there's no other alternatives. And so since I don't think that this observation works on the AE map, therefore it must be a globe. It's a false dichotomy fallacy. And there were many straw mans, as I've never even claimed that model to be true. I've actually said the opposite for a very long time. So, and again, the big one being the argument from incredulity. So I will say all of these claimed evidences, they require, I wish I knew the time. All these claimed evidences, time? Can you,
You have 3 minutes.
Oh, okay, okay. All these claimed evidences are presupposing so many things, bro. And that's the part that I'm very perplexed about, because we have all sat here and we've realized that we need to suspend belief. Not believing in the globe is a suspension of belief. And you're approaching this as if, no, it's actually us coming in and we have a super staunch positive belief. That is not my position at all. I am suspending belief, wiping the board clean, and be like, okay, what can be empirically validated? I'm not going to presuppose things. Again, let's just stick with the 24-hour sun. To say that the 24-hour sun, because you just defended it, you just stated the conclusion in your opener. You stated the conclusion as a fact, right? So you're just saying that we saw it, therefore we proved it. You just told us about how it was definitively proof, not really how it wasn't, or how it was proof. And then when you kind of even went in that direction, it was because I don't understand the alternative. I don't see how that could possibly work on the alternative. It matches the globe perfectly, which again affirms the consequent. So I want everyone to just think about this. So to claim that the reason we saw what we saw in Antarctica is because we're on a sphere, we're going to claim that all the stars in the sky are infinite distances away, so far away that when we move across the surface of the Earth and it looks like they drop down when we move further away from them, it isn't because of perspective. How perspective changes everything else in the world. And when we see a plane fly away from us and it goes down, right, and it comes close to us and it goes up, perspective affects everything in the world. We use special pleading, which is claiming the exclusion to a universal principle, the exception to a universal principle, which is no, actually the sky is the one exception, the stars is the one exception. Perspective doesn't change it. It does exactly what perspective would do to change the position, but it isn't because of perspective. And then to make that, so we have to presuppose that to even claim the globe is possible. This is why they've changed the distance so many times and kept pushing it back. Then to claim that those stars are that far away, you then have to answer the question of how would you be able to see it from that far away? So now you have to assume that there is a vacuum, that there's nothing between us, a near perfect vacuum, so you could even see
1
them.
minute.
And then you stack those on top of each other to come over and say, therefore, we're physically changing direction. It makes the perspective look as if it would if we were on a horizontal plane, but it's not perspective. And therefore, we see the sun where it is. And you have to assume the distance, pretty much assume the 93 million miles as well. So that's my main issue with this, is that before we even get to affirming the consequent, we have to, presuppose like 7 or 8 things. And that's kind of my rebuttal. I listed off all the fallacies. I won't listen back. I don't think I have a full enough time, but the big ones of argument from incredulity, an appeal to ignorance. You have shifting the burden of proof. You have begging the question, appeal to pity or emotion, false dilemma, slippery slope, strawman fallacy, affirming the consequent, ad homs, hasty generalizations, reification fallacies. And that's the issue, is that every single one of the arguments I've heard so far have literally been a textbook fallacy. So we can get into specifics going forward.
I think it'd be good.
And time. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for your rebuttals. And I think I want to announce to the audience right now, go ahead and start submitting your questions to the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Click that box. The Q&A should open as a pop-up. Be sure to submit your questions. And for the next 30 minutes, we're going to engage in an open cross-exam between Austin and Jeran.
I think it'd be good,
Gentlemen,
Austin, if we kind of go through and, maybe I'll ask a question of you, you can answer it, then you do one of me, just so that we can kind of stay on these topics, because I think you've hit some good points that I want to kind of iron through. For the first one is that the stars do not act as perspective acts. Perspective does not adjust equally, meaning that if I move a certain distance, it lowers a certain distance, and if I move a certain more distance, it lowers the exact same distance. If anybody wants to go outside tonight, find a northbound longitude line and measure wherever 69 miles from you will be. When you get there, the North Star will change its position by 1 degree. Well, guess what 360 times 69 miles is? 24,901. Why is that? Because that's the shape of the Earth. That's the circumference of the Earth. You can go prove it tonight yourself. You don't need anybody. But flat earthers aren't going to tell you that. They're going to tell you, oh, it's perspective, and that's how perspective works. It's not how perspective works. Go measure the height of a telephone pole, walk halfway to it, measure it again, walk another same amount of distance, and you'll notice that it changes it. If you're walking towards a building, it gets bigger faster as you get closer to the building than it does when you're far away. This is not how the stars work. So the stars, he was false in that. He said that the stars operate as perspective would. That's not true. They don't. What's your, I guess you're.
Right, let's just stop right there. Let's stop right there. Let's stop there. Yeah. So you agree, like if a plane flies over your head and goes away, it looks like it's going down. As it flies close, okay. So perspective does in fact cause things in the distance to appear to go down towards the horizon and converge into that place.
Agree.
And okay, so that's what I'm not talking about the exact ratio. The sky is for sure a very interesting phenomena, right? I mean, indisputably, in the paradigm of the globe, it's like wildly crazy
Distances are
phenomenon, right?
wild. Yeah, the things are pretty crazy. But I think that the flat Earth model that calls for stars circling your head would have parallax issues. They would have all kinds of stuff that we don't see anything of, right? We don't see the constellations change their orientation. So it does do exactly what the sphere calls for with the stars at a very, very far distance.
Well,
Right.
let's just talk about it. So like, okay, so perspective does cause things to look like it goes down when it goes away from you. And the stars do that. So, like I said,
But at a predictable exact rate. So like if you did that with perspective, you wouldn't get the same we move 69 miles north, the star drops 1 degree. 69 more miles, 1 degree. 69. That's not how anything perspective works. If you did
that
that
actually isn't even entirely true, right? So there
not?
is, yeah. So it's claimed to have like a linear 1-to-1 ratio. This actually isn't true though. Like if you actually look at like the celestial navigation, like the manuals, right? You cannot take any of the angles like all the way up to something like 15 degrees and then a few degrees away from 90. You can't even take them. And so actually it's like logarithmic. It actually starts to compress almost like a hyperbolic like a geometry. But everyone just says it's 69 miles, oh, it just works, and everyone acts like it works. It doesn't. It like factually doesn't. You can't actually use the angles to the stars lower down. Meaning as things get closer and closer to the horizon, right, that claimed linear ratio doesn't happen at all. And just to make the bigger claim though, because I don't want to get lost, what I'm saying is it is special pleading in that we're claiming the exception to a universal principle, which is everywhere else, when we look, we know that because of perspective, that things get further away, they appear to go down, right? And we see the sky appear to go down, but the globe is claiming, so yeah, it has the same effect as perspective, but it isn't because of perspective. It's because we're physically changing our orientation, right? We agree with
Well,
that?
yeah, I would agree with that. I just want to know if you're talking about if perspective is a mathematic equation, is there a formula for perspective?
Well, that's a good question, right? People do use a formula for perspective, but I don't agree with it. And so
Okay,
if
but
it's,
it
so if
won't
you
work
actually
for
look into it,
stars.
if you actually look into it, it's well known that like visual space is much more complex than this really rudimentary trigonometry that people try to use, assuming that there's linear visual space. And this has been tested and written about at some of the highest levels
So
all
are
the
you
time.
saying that do you think if we went to 25 degrees north and then we kept going 1 degree or north each time, so we get up to 45 degrees, are you saying that the star wouldn't adjust by exactly that amount of degrees based on if we go 69 miles north, 69 again, say we do it 10 times, it's 690 degrees, 10 steps so that way, so the North Star would be 10 degrees different. You agree with that?
It will be, yeah, it'll be very close. It will not be exact.
Well,
And no,
if you're at 25 and 45 degrees, it should be close, right? Because you're not in the refraction zones.
okay, so that's what you're saying. You're calling this is what, let's make sure everyone understands this. Conveniently, we call the refraction zones all the way up to like 15 degrees or more above the horizon, because what actually happens is the stars start to act way different, right? I mean, that's 15 degrees is super high above the horizon,
I
right?
agree.
No, but the stars start acting different. Well, this is what like hyperbolic visual space would predict. It would be a logarithmic relationship. So like on the globe, it's very simple. We're standing on a globe. There's basically nothing between us and the stars. They're super far away. So the only reason the stars look like they change positions is because we're tipping over. But that's actually not what we observe in reality. All the way 15 degrees or more, we start to see them start to compress and get logarithmic, meaning that the way that they change is exponentially different. And even all the way up towards 90. So you're told specifically not to utilize those. So we can say it's refraction. That's not even like a realistic or viable explanation, like 15 degrees. So conveniently, the difference in the linear perspective and a hyperbolic perspective, it's a wash, right? According to the globe, it just conveniently we're going to change that range and not use it. We're not going to use the range that would be different between a linear and a hyperbolic visual space.
But is that also the place where refraction would cause issues with the observations of stars?
15 degrees above the horizon?
Sure. I mean, if you're
Like,
looking out in a direction, that's not very high, and that's where all the atmosphere is, right? So you're going to be looking through the most amount of atmosphere at about 10 to 15 degrees from the ground. That's where you're going to have, if, again, I'm saying if refraction is true, which I believe that it is, and then you just have to say, well, that's what the globe is saying, is that the reason that the stars get mushed together is because they are being refracted, or they kind of disappear, they kind of get faded in that area. So again, I don't know if that's really, because I'm saying we could still take the distance away from 15 and away from 90, and then we could, if that's working perfectly as a sphere, that'd be really weird that works as a sphere, but not the 15 degrees that we have left to go. So, I mean, you could just keep doing that one section that you have, and you would be able to figure out that the Earth is 24,901 miles around, simply because we can keep going north, and you would always get 1 degree every 69 miles. So I see what you're saying. I mean, again, you're just going to claim that that's, I'll have to look into what exactly the formula is, because I do know that refraction does break down as well. Not refraction, sorry. That perspective breaks down close to you and far away from you.
It does because of the way that everyone tries to use like linear geometry for perspective. So
Right.
like, and this is just an assumption, but this has actually been written about for decades, and it's just people don't even want to go touch it. And like, I've done a stream on this, right? It's a very basic way to disprove this idea, because when we look at railroads, we know that they're physically parallel in reality, but they look like they converge. Okay, but according to planar geometry, they don't ever converge. They're just parallel. So
Right.
if we were seeing in planar geometry, we would see them just remain parallel. So obviously there's a difference between how we see in actual plane geometry, right? Because it's converging. They appear to converge. And what they end up saying is, oh, well, we have a formula for that. Yeah, you made a corrective adjustment to the trigonometry because planar geometry doesn't work. And this has been like a well-known problem. It's just like the elephant in the room in any discussion about visual space. And I will say they actually recently had to address it because they were utilizing planar geometry for perspective with robotics, which required extreme precision, and the robots were off. They couldn't accurately position things even in small rooms because it was such a precise need of visual alignment. So they actually had to start to integrate like hyperbolic visual space. So now we have a huge situation where we're assuming that we see in straight lines on a globe, and we map the whole globe out that way. And if we actually see with curved visual space, right there, if perspective is not perfectly linear, the globe can't be true. Like on its face, because that's like every angle measurement, the way the entire globe model is set up, it's based on assumed straight lines that we see in. So we actually don't even see it that way. And
So you're saying that we see curved lines to the stars?
I'm saying that like the collective visual space itself, yes, like towards the bottom, what happens is the extremities. So like towards as far as you can see, when you get closer and closer to the limit of how far you can see, you start to have like an actual curved convergence.
But we don't see that with the stars, right?
We do see that with the stars, and that's why even in the manuals they say don't even take the measurements like up to 15 degrees.
Sorry, I meant do we see? You were talking about like railroad tracks converging in the distance. So things as they go away from us converge, but stars don't do that. Is what I'm saying. The stars.
Oh no, yeah, they definitely don't do it like the rate. If they do, it's like hard to even notice at all for sure. Right. But that's why I did immediately concede that yes, the sky isn't just like very basic, but they're in like a different realm almost, right? We don't, regardless of what you think about the Earth, it's well known that what happens in the sky is like something totally different, right? Like we don't know. Like according to the globe, it's pretty crazy as well. It's actually, I would say, much crazier. I'm not claiming to know exactly how the sky works, and I'm also acknowledging that perspective is not exactly like this one-to-one. I don't even believe that it is linear. The evidence shows on the Earth that perspective is not that way. So now if we're going to add way more distances to the stars, right, we have to account for curved visual space.
Let me just say, so you understand my position too, is I'm not buying into any of the other stuff yet. That all takes being convinced like I was of the sphere. So everything else is on the table, but the sphere is not something at this point that I think can be changed. Nothing's going to come out that now the sphere doesn't work anymore. It's the Earth is mapped as a sphere. It operates as a sphere. Again, yeah, is it flat locally? Yes. So do we treat the Earth like it's flat? So it doesn't surprise me anymore that we have manuals saying treat the Earth as a flat, motionless plane, because that's what you do. If you did it anything else, you would crash, because you don't need to do that. The Earth is so big, we just don't have any understanding of spheres that are large enough that are in the entire world. I want to show this real quick, just so I'll get your answer on this one, Austin. So this is you can see my screen now that I'm sharing these little things here.
Yeah, actually, I did find out that I can help you share your screen if you want.
Okay, well, I'm all right. I think as long as people can see that. So this was on Twitter.
Let me make you bigger then. It's like super small, right? So,
but it is kind of serendipitous, or whatever you want to call it, that this is the 6 month to the day anniversary of this particular observation. So this is the 24-hour sun on December 14th in Union Glacier. So this is what Austin and I both saw. We both know that we were both there. We both know there was no trickery. There was no funny business. That's the freaking sun. And it does circle your head in Antarctica. So once we see that, something interesting is if we go now to, pause, if we go now to the Google Earth here, you can see that, yeah. So I've got Google Earth pulled up and you'll see up here that I've got the date as 6/14. You can't see that high? Oh, it's a little about, let's see if we can get this, you can see it. Shoot, hold on, I don't want you to see. Sorry, stop. Okay, let's go with this one instead. That's better. All right, now you can see it up there. Right, so you see at the top here, it says 6/16. I went back 2 days. But you'll notice that this is at the north, at 80 degrees north. So the complete opposite of where we were 6 months ago. And if we play the time lapse, you'll notice that the sun does the exact same thing that we saw it do, only the opposite. It's the opposite direction. And there'll never be a flat model ever in your life or your children's lives that will ever explain this. And it doesn't matter if you say it's personal incredulity, that I don't know how something works. So no, because there's been flat earthers forever, and they've never, not one person, not one entity, not one Daniel Shenton, not one Lady Blount, not one St. Pierre, not one Allen, not one Whitsitt has ever been able to explain it. So if your level of acceptance of something is you're not allowed to say that it doesn't, oh, just because I don't know how it works. Well, how many people need to say that something doesn't work until we know it doesn't work? Eventually, we have to get to the conclusion that something will never work, and we move on from there, and we just leave it. We don't stay on something and say, well, we still think the Earth's flat no matter what, even if it doesn't work. There is a model that very simply says, of course, you would see 80 degrees north, the opposite of what you would see 80 degrees south 6 months later, because that's how the globe works. It's what it predicts. It's what it calls for. So, and again, it's the exact same, meaning that if you were to measure the lowest, which looks about right there, the lowest spot in the sky, if you measured that, it'd be 15 degrees. If you notice, it's exactly north. Okay, what I figured out in the south, whoops, didn't mean to move up. What I figured out in the south was by watching the sun, I said, man, every time the sun gets to its lowest position, if I walk towards it, it will adjust up by 1 degree every 69 miles. And we were, remember, it was like 15 miles or 10 degrees low or 15 degrees, wherever it was in the south. And I realized, oh, I bet you we're 790 miles from the pole, because you could just figure that out by how many times do I need to go towards the sun till it, sorry, it was at 15 degrees, but by going towards it, it's going to lift. And every time it lifts 69 miles, you would do it 10 times. It would lift 690 times, or 690 miles you'd travel. And that's where the South Pole is. Because what that would do is raise that sun to 25 degrees. And then what would that move the 35 degrees behind me to? 25 degrees. There's only one place on the Earth that would allow the sun to go around you and stay at the same height the whole time. That is the North and South Pole. And that is what we saw, 15 degrees and 35. But now I can infer from that there's a South Pole. We know the South Pole's there. Flat Earth wants to keep pretending that it might not be, which is them creating a paradoxical world where we have a North Pole, and underneath it, we have a North Celestial Pole. Underneath it, we have a North Pole. We have a South Celestial Pole, which is exactly 180 degrees from the North Celestial Pole. What's below it? Flat Earthers will never answer that, because it completely destroys the model. You can't say there's a South Pole, because on a flat map, everywhere is the South Pole. The South Pole is in all directions and everywhere. So my question to you, Austin, is with this, I get what you're saying, where you're saying, well, no, you're just claiming that you don't know how a flat model works. So at what point do we throw the flat model away if we've now falsified it, technically, in the way that at least the map that you don't ascribe to? But do you understand that there's no other map ever coming, that there's no other, the AE map is the continents laid out correctly, with the tropics laid out correctly, with the equator laid out correctly. Those are not movable because they're not man-made. They are features of the place that we live. The sun furthest south, Tropic of Capricorn, furthest north, Cancer, and the equator is where it's above on the equinox. So my question is, if there's never going to be another map, and the flat Earth map has been falsified, then what is your hope by staying a flat Earther? Where do you think, what's going to happen? How could that ever be answered? It would have to be, number one, we create a new map, which is impossible because the continents are laid out correctly. That's the AE map. Or we figure out there's a magic formula of repeating suns and duplicating suns. So is that really what you're hoping for, is some sort of miracle? Or do you understand that you'll never explain it? Because it hasn't been explained in hundreds of years, if not thousands.
Okay. Lot. You said a lot, right? So
sorry, but we can take it slow. I just want to know, what is your, do you acknowledge that in the north right now, today at 80 degrees north, they would be seeing the inverse and complete opposite of what we saw?
Yeah, see, it certainly seems that way. Now, I mean, we did one trip and we saw one location, but it was pretty close to matching. Like, I don't even think it actually matched perfectly, some of the elevation angles, but pretty close. Sure, but here's the thing, right? For one, it's like, how are we even determining what is the opposite? Like, what are we talking about right now, right? We're talking about a model, and so you're bringing up the AE map. The AE map uses the same fictitious observer in the center that the globe does. You actually have to just assume the center of a globe, use a fictitious observer, and then look at the sky, and you're actually going to map out this projection. If you're talking about the South Pole, if I were to take the center point and move it over 5 or 10 degrees, now everything changes drastically, right? We don't even have the same positioning to observe the sun at all as the AE map because it's just a projection. They both have fictitious observers. And this isn't just some like way to get out of it. It's very important. It's very important to understand that these are just maps and projections and models that use fictitious observers and assumptions for convenience sake. We then did this over the course of time, and now we have generally what we observe matches our map or our model. And you keep saying, like, you keep bringing up the AE map as if like I'm supposed to answer for that, and then you say, well, were you expecting to have some other? For one, if you wanted to play the projection game, you can move stuff around and get a bipolar. If you take that away from the south and move it in, you get like a bipolar projection. And you would say, well, then how would this work on the bipolar? And you're going to try to critique it. Well, they're all just projections. I don't reify and treat any of those as if they're real. I know that they're not. They're just projections, and they all have issues. And you make consistent refractive corrections. And this is very important because this kind of got lost with the first one. We're talking about the refractive conditions required for, let's say, celestial navigation for cell nav. You have to use planar corrections, actual empirical measurements, then correct to even try to get the refraction. And you don't just use like Snell's law. We use planar measurements to then correct, and we can't even actually use this 1 degree per 69 miles, which is such a slam dunk for the globe. It's the complete opposite. That doesn't actually happen in reality. And then to try to make the corrections for refraction, we don't use like typical refraction. We then actually have to account for planar geometry to even do it. Right. So, and then that kind of spills right over to, well, then we definitely can't have a situation where when we look at the star and we see the position of it in relation to a mountaintop, if we take a planar geometry measurement to that, as soon as the star is occulted by the mountain, we're like, okay, because this is what this is all about. You're talking about this proves the Earth's a globe because the sun's right here, right? And it's based on the position on the globe. It's the same thing, celestial observation. I see the star go behind the mountain. It gets occulted. I immediately take the time, right? And then if I go into solarium, and you brought that up, well, that's just like a globe. Why are you using that? That's the whole point. We're using the globe to see what the actual prediction should be, right? To falsify it. And it uses the same fictitious central observer again. But like when we're on top of that mountaintop, we look at the time, it matches the perfect planar geometry measurement. Meaning if I'm on a flat earth and I stand right here, I look at a mountain, the star gets occulted by the mountain, and I take an angle to the top of that mountain. If I go stay on top of that mountain and take another measurement to that star, it'll actually make a straight line all the way down from star to mountain to observer, right? It'll come down and basically complete part of a triangle. And there's a specific angle that the flat earth would predict. The globe earth predicts something completely different. It would be much lower. It's on a globe. And it matches the flat earth prediction
But
every
Stellarium
time
matches,
consistently.
right?
What?
Stellarium is right when it tells you what the angle would be from the mountain.
Yes. The thing is that we're talking about the input, the one measurement you're making is the actual observer. The observer is making that measurement. What's the time that the star is occulted by that mountain? And then we're going to compare that. It makes a perfectly straight line where it wouldn't on a globe. And so what all the globe proponents have been trying to do is claim refraction, trying to find out any way they can to claim refraction. And they can't with this though, because it's occulted. It isn't there. It's not even there to talk about to invoke refraction. It's not even applicable. So the sky doesn't help these always just get thrown under the rug. These are like major problems. So we're claiming the globe is a physical geometry changing our physical positioning, and that's why we see the sky the way we do. Then how come whenever we start to get down where hyperbolic visual space would be expected to converge, that's what we see. We can't use the globe or we can't even navigate. Then we try to make corrections. We have to use plane measurements, plane trig, plane geometry to even make the corrections for the refraction that we're presupposing. So this is a major problem for the globe. And this, I want to hit something meta, and I'm going to give it back to you. This is the meta part here, right? That you're like, because this is what I don't understand, right? I believe you that you're saying you don't understand how I'm still a flat earther. You don't get it. I went there with you, and how do I not see it? And you think that, I'm not stupid. You don't get it. This is how
you know something I don't.
Okay, well, how I feel though, right, is like I don't understand how, if there is an entire list of reputations, geometric reputations that need to be addressed, if I come over here and I see something that we previously just didn't have access to, that was the issue. We didn't have reliable access to it. That's how we felt. So that we went and verified it. How am I going to see that and then be like, okay, wow, I don't really know exactly how that would work on a flat Earth. And then somehow it just nullifies the whole other list, because what you're saying, right? You're saying, you're bringing up the appeal to incredulity. And if, okay, we just do that, what are we just going to sit here forever? Because what I'm saying is, you're saying it can't be true because you don't understand how it could be true, which is an appeal to incredulity. And you're saying, well, then were you just going to sit here and not know how stuff works forever? Apply that same thing to your side. When I ask you about the star, it's going to be, we don't know how it works. It's going to be, think about the long list of reputations of the globe. Currently, your response to all of them is going to be like, I don't know how it works.
Well, I don't
Right?
know any. I mean, so you're telling me there's observations that you just said that it doesn't work, that we do 69 miles. But let me just say this. So if you know what your degree of latitude means, right? So if we're talking about the difference between 42 degrees and 32 degrees, we know that that's 10 degrees. And so we know that that is the distance between those two locations would be 690 miles. So are you saying that if we measured it, it wouldn't work out? I don't understand how you can say it doesn't work, yet it's how the world is mapped.
No, I'm saying that generally speaking, that relationship is somewhat accurate. We're actually using planar geometry to even do it. And if you were to go into the real world and try to let's just assume the Earth's a globe and it's one degree per 69 miles, and I'm actually like, oh, look, it's kind of cloudy up above me, but I see some stars that are like 10, 15 degrees above the horizon. If I actually start navigating using that, I will not be able to do it. If I assume the Earth's a globe, it won't work. And that's a major problem, because
I think you're
this
taking
side
away
would
from-
predict that. My
That's how they
prediction
sailed-
would
that's
be
how they
that.
sailed boats. That's how they sailed boats. That's how they found the South Pole. That's how they found the North Pole. Everything that they've done is through the stars, and you're just throwing it away and saying, "Oh, we wouldn't get anywhere. We wouldn't actually be accurate." But that's how
No. I'm saying, yes, there's no doubt that we have a well-established relationship between the sky and how we navigate. Like, no one can dispute that.
Okay.
But the point is, like, why? Why is it the way that it is? Why do we see it the way it is? Why are we able to use it reliably? You're saying it's because it's a globe. We're physically changing our angle, our orientations, making the stars look different, right? That's the claim. But in reality, that doesn't match the evidence. I'm saying, well, we're on a plane, and the way that we see is not in these perfect infinite straight lines. That is factually not true. We can even disprove it with railroad tracks. So we would expect there to be a pretty solid relationship right in the middle, the little sweet spot, until we get to the extremities where it's going to then converge and become logarithmic. That's literally what we see with curved visual space. Is what we see.
I just
We mapped
measured
it out. We mapped it out, is what I'm saying. It's reliable because we mapped it out. There's no doubt that's how we see the sky. The debate is about, why do we see the sky that way?
Yeah, I get you. Because I just measured from 20 degrees to 30 degrees, and it's exactly 687 miles, which is what you would expect, 69 times 10. And then what I'm saying is, so those two are not within the refraction zone, being at 20 and 30 degrees. So what you could do is then just move here and do it again for another 10 degrees, do it again for another 10 degrees, and you would keep going until you've done 24,901. That's the whole sphere. You're saying at some point that would break down. That's a paradox. And where does it break down? Where does it fall apart? Where does the Earth stop conforming to being a sphere? Because it does everywhere else. Just like, so the next thing I wanted to get into, and that's just.
Well, wait up though. Like, I want to bring up a flat Earth evidence.
Okay.
Because like, realistically, the star being occulted by the mountain is not answered, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that's a kind of a new thing that I think that people are working through right now. I don't fully understand it because of the fact that you're using stellarium, which is giving you the curved Earth angles, correct? It's not giving you flat Earth angles, it's giving you curved Earth angles, but you're saying you're taking a location from where stellarium is not even talking about. You're further back than that, right? Stellarium is just telling you where the mountain top to the star is. Is that correct?
Yeah,
and then
yes.
You're drawing your location back here and saying, oh, now if we draw an angle to that mountain top. Right, so you're kind of adding something that stellarium is not accounting for.
Well, that's the whole point, is like, the one measurement you're taking is you're standing there, you're looking at the star, you're looking at the mountain. Once the star is occulted by the mountain, boom, write the time down. Okay.
So why wouldn't refraction come into play? I don't understand what you mean by that.
Because, okay, well, now the star's occulted. We're accounting for the position of the star once we're not even seeing it. It's occulted. So are we going to say the position of the star is just because it's being refracted? It's not. It's about an
I mean,
occult.
could it be somewhere? So when we see the sun set, they say that it's actually still above the horizon, right? It's gone, but it's still there, or whatever. It's always somewhere about a half a degree off of where we think. So that would be the same with stars, meaning that if you're counting when a star gets occulted by a mountain, it would make a difference as to where it's refracted to. Is it refracted above the mountain, below the mountain? Is it I would think that that would matter, but it doesn't matter in your case because you're not actually taking any information from the location that you're at. You're just measuring. Stellarium's not taking that into account at all, correct? Am I correct in that? Stellarium
Okay.
doesn't know that you're taking an observation of the,
No.
it's just telling you from a mountaintop to this star, this is the angle, correct? That's correct. That's what Stellarium's telling you. And
Yeah.
then you're saying, well, if we step back further and measure to that mountain, then it matches a planar angle. And does that, I guess where I'm confused is that then matches Stellarium or doesn't?
No, it doesn't
coming up
match.
with-
It doesn't
who's
match.
coming up with that? Who's
it
saying
doesn't-
that it's a planar angle, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Not Stellarium.
No, this is the issue. It doesn't match the globe, right? The globe claims that the 69 mile per degree
Mhm.
is a physical, like a real physical effect. We're physically tipping away. It's not an optical effect, it's not an apparent effect, it's a physical effect. We're physically moving, right?
Sure.
So, okay, well, the star gets occulted by the mountain, and then if the fact that we can connect that observation with a perfect straight line, right, shows that there isn't a physical effect of 69 miles per degree because of globe geometry. It can't be. And the flat Earth prediction is exactly what it's supposed to be, but the globe is significantly different. The default, everyone just always says refraction to everything, so that's all that they say. And you said it's kind of a new thing. Well, it's been months, right? And the globe is just keep on trying to find different ways to say somehow it is refraction, but it's not actually optical.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was funny at me to the beginning because this is when I was answering everybody about we don't look at lights in the sky to figure out the shape of the Earth, and then 2 weeks later, this celestial theodolite comes out, which is looking at lights in the sky to figure out the shape of the ground. So I just kind of dismissed it on its face, and I guess I'll look into it a little bit more. But I guess I still want to go back to what you said because it still doesn't make sense to me. Why couldn't we just measure in 10-degree segments on the Earth to stay away from this?
Oh, you can, but
Right,
what?
So
That
we would
doesn't-
calculate, and that would come out to 24,901.
That doesn't. But you're saying why can't we just avoid the part that falsifies the presupposition that we're on a globe? Because
No,
I don't
but-
want to. Because I'm bringing up that it falsifies the globe. You know, like
Right, but if there's refraction, that's why we're not taking those angles because they'll be off. So if we just take the angles that we can see, this, say from 15 to 80 or 90, well, that is sufficient to get us to the shape of the Earth.
but they use empirically derived formulas to correct the stars, so that they use actual observations with planar geometry to actually make the corrections with cell nav, which is not the same as like Snell's law, like refraction. They actually have to use planar geometry to try to make these corrections. And you're just.
Let me
I
ask
will
this
say it is
question.
somewhat
Gentlemen,
baffling
1
that
minute, gentlemen.
you're able to just default to
No, I'm not able to
refraction
default.
so comfortably now.
No, it's not that it's so comfortable. It's that they have an explanation that has been measured and does show to be the case. I've seen examples of refraction myself, but here's what I want to go back to. If people understand that the latitude that you're at is your angle to Polaris, there is no getting around that. If you measure your angle to Polaris tonight from wherever you're at, it will be your latitude. So if we know then that somebody at 45 is going to see Polaris at 45 degrees and that somebody at 35 is going to see it at 35 degrees, then we just need to measure the distance between a person at 35 and 45, and guess what you'll get? 690 miles every single time, because the Earth is a sphere and it works as in a linear fashion like that, or I don't know what you would call that, in a very equal action like that, every 69 miles, 1 degree. And that's how we have the whole Earth is mapped. Now, I want to ask,
It's calculated. It's a calculative presupposition based on the actual astronomical latitude.
how is it a presupposition if it's the measurement of miles?
And
It's not a
gentlemen, that
measurement.
is
You
time.
measure one. Okay.
But I'm
is
saying if
time,
we,
John.
I just think if we measured,
That's the time of like open.
That's the open cross exam time.
Yeah.
that's really
30
short.
minutes.
We
30
could've gone
minutes has
forever.
been completed.
But yeah, that's
Schedule
why.
number 2. I guess schedule number 2. We'll have some other stuff because I had some other things I wanted to show people. But I do think, Austin, one thing that, and maybe I'll find something specific for you, but I think that you need to watch my show. I get it. I do too many live streams. You don't want to watch it. I get it. But it's also the same thing that every other flat earther's done. So all I see is people running around saying, we don't understand what Jeran's doing. We don't understand. But I've literally done an entire series, an unplugged series of 12 episodes where I went through every single evidence and every single piece and explained it thoroughly. So if people don't understand my position, or why do I just accept refraction? Well, it's because once I saw that the south operates as the globe calls for, and then we saw the sun setting right to left in the south. So that immediately, let me give one example because I think it's my best proof that nobody's been able to, come up with an answer for. And I didn't even know this. I've never heard a glober say it, but everybody who's in the north, When you look at a sunrise or sunset, so I'm talking about looking east or west only, not north, not south. We're looking at sunrise or sunset. The sun will rise left to right and it will set left to right in the north for every single person every day of the year, no matter what. End of story. In the south, they see the opposite thing. Okay, so every single sunrise for every single person in the south for every day of the year goes right to left, and every single sunset goes right to left. When we were in Punta Arenas, we saw the sunset severely right to left, way different than we've ever seen before. The sun's never done that to any of us in our lives, because the south is the inverse of the north. Now, get this. This is the paradox of flat Earth. Can an item that's going in one direction be seen by two people looking in the same direction to be going in opposite directions? And I know it sounds convoluted, but if you have two people in the north and the south both looking west at the same sunset, we're talking about the same sunset, can they see it going in opposite directions if the Earth is flat? How would that be possible, right? So you'd have a sun going around, and you'd have people south and north looking west, the sun's setting, so it would always go to the right. On any flat Earth that there'll ever be, it'll go to the right. But we saw it going to the left. Now, here's the crazy thing. Do you know if somebody on the day that we saw the sun set right to left in Punta, if you were in the north, you saw the sun set left to right. So imagine that. We're in the south watching the sun go left. They're in the north watching the sun go right. That's a paradox on a flat Earth. How could you have two people looking the same direction, have a sun going in two opposite directions? Well, the reason is there is a shape that would call for that to happen. There's a shape that
Jeran,
says...
do you want me to submit that question to Austin? Austin, do you want to answer that question real quick before we move on to the next segment?
Well, I'm ready to move on. I want to make like a meta point though that I feel like everyone wants to say, since you kind of got that off. Give me like a 30-second thing and then we'll move on, whatever. This is the issue.
I'll give you 1 minute.
Okay.
Take a minute.
I want to say this again. Okay. It's like we saw something we didn't previously have access to. It requires affirming the consequent. You don't know how it works on the globe. You reified the AE model. I get all that. It doesn't automatically wash out all the geometric refutations of why flat Earth is a thing in the first place. That is my point. That is my point, though. You would have to then diligently, logically, go provide sufficient rebuttals to all of those geometric refutations, where it doesn't matter what you're still stuck with.
What happened to falsification is independent of replacement?
That's my point. That's my point.
What do you mean?
Right?
The globe's didn't you say I have to replace those things? I thought you're saying I have to do that.
No, I'm saying you actually have to address the geometric refutations, not replace anything. You're asking us to replace the globe explanation. Wait, you're asking us to replace the globe explanation, or it must be a globe. That's what you're doing. I'm saying we falsified the globe explanation over here with like 100 things, and then you're just you have selective amnesia.
No, I want you,
gentlemen, before I want to jump in real quick, because we could go on all night, I'm sure. And some of these things you're talking about are in some of the questions that have been submitted, so you'll get a chance to readdress some of these things.
Okay.
So for the next segment, we'll go 30 minutes here. We'll take questions from the audience. We got quite a few questions coming in, and the questions do seem to be meaty. I think you guys are gonna, have a chance to really dig in with each of these. The majority, I just got to warn you, the majority of the questions are for Jeran. So what I would like to do is I would like to give each person 2 minutes to address the question. And if it's a question for both of you, then I'll allow each of you one rebuttal for 1 minute after you hear your interlocutor's answer to the question. Are you guys cool with that?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Jeran, you want to go full screen?
Yeah, I can do that.
She looks a little better.
So Austin, just to be clear, you will get a chance to address the questions that are for Jeran as well. So you both get 2 minutes.
I get you. Cool.
Yeah, but whoever the question is addressed to will speak first.
Okay.
All right, guys. So we have Charles is asking, Jeran, how does an observation of the sky change what the floor is?
Okay, because it's something called a measuring stick, right? So just like you can use a ruler, why can we use a ruler to go measure things? Because it's a standard. Every ruler is the same, and so we can use it as a measuring stick. The sun is the biggest and most accurate measuring stick that the world has ever known. It's the most important thing that there ever was. And it is a measuring stick because it moves in very predictable 24-hour fashions. We know exactly where it will be in 400 years, 4,000 years, 40,000 years. We know exactly where it was 2,000 years ago. So that's because the sun works as a measuring stick. So once somebody gives you a map and tells you you live here, the very first thing you should do is see if it jives with the known measuring stick. Because if it doesn't, then guess what? The map is wrong, period. There's no instance of ever a measuring stick being wrong when it's actually the measuring stick, right? So you can never have, oh, this measuring is wrong because this ruler is wrong. Well, then the ruler's not a measuring stick if it's wrong. Just like the sun, it wouldn't be a measuring device if it was wrong. It's perfect. That's why we use it for calendars, for dates, for time, everything, time, you name it. The sun is used for that. So if you can observe something that is not possible on the map somebody gives you, then you can immediately hand them the map back and say, you're wrong. I don't live here. Well, guess what? That's what the AE map has had happen. Now I get Austin's point. He's saying he doesn't believe in an AE map, but then then you don't believe in anything. Then the earth doesn't have a shape or a look. Can you give me any idea what the world looks like? Because if you're going to tell me it's a flat earth, then it has to be flat. And I know that the only flat map that can exist is the AE map. Now you can disagree with that all you want. I spent 6 months trying to figure it out. And then I got to the point where I said, oh, because the AE map because a flat map has to have the continents laid out correctly, has to have the tropics and the equator. Therefore, the only map that will ever be flat is the AE map. Now, you could say I think Austin said there's a bipolar model that completely destroys all observations. Again, if you have a bipolar model, the sun would be coming up the other side, so it would be rising in the west to people in Russia and Africa. It doesn't make any sense. That's why you've never heard it pushed, because this is why there's no other map pushed. Have you ever wondered why there's no other flat earth map?
Thank you, Jeran.
Let me know when the 2 minutes are up, just last time. Or give me
All right.
10, 20
I try to
seconds.
give you a little bit of a grace period afterward so that we're not too strict. Austin, you have 2 minutes. The question is, how does an observation of the sky change what the floor is?
Yeah. So it's independent of physical measurements of the surface. It is. But my approach is that you don't just like turn your head to things. Right. So I'm all for like trying to understand it, right? Because again, actually seeing the occultation of that star, well, that's actually technically in the sky. Now difference is we're using a physical measurement of the surface there. Right. So we have a linear baseline, a specific angle that creates a straight line from observer to mountain peak to star. And there's an occultation. It's physical. And then hopefully there'll be a question about cell nav in here where I can hopefully explain and correct exactly the issue with the globe there. But I will just say, to answer the question more directly, it's like, actually it doesn't. You don't prove the surface of the earth strictly by making a singular celestial observation or any celestial observation for that matter. It requires a lot of presuppositions, and just frankly may not be the answer people want to hear. It is just an affirming the consequent. To say the 24-hour sun in Antarctica proves the globe requires a logical fallacy. It like literally requires it, and then shifting the burden, appeal to incredulity, et cetera. So that's the issue with it. The reason that it doesn't prove what the ground is because it requires affirming the consequent and presupposing what you're seeing the sky from in the first place.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So another question, it's a nice follow-up to what you guys were just discussing here. Anonymous is asking, is cartography real? Why does every map of a large area require distortion?
Yeah. Well, is that for him?
This is for both of you. This is for both of you. So Jeran, you can go first.
Well, obviously, because the Earth is a sphere, and so no matter what map you ever make, will always have issues, because a sphere has a certain amount of surface area, and a flat piece of paper will always have more, and so you're always going to have distortions.
Okay, Austin?
I'm trying to get it to where we're both on the big screen when we answer, but yeah, because it's simply a projection. You're trying to fit a projection. You're trying to fit measurements, typically using the sky, and then put it on a projection. So it's always going to have distortion, and just depends on how you move it around. The bipolar model, ironically, it's like exactly the same as the globe. You can move it around 5-10 degrees, whatever direction. It is literally just a distribution with a projection, right? It's just a projection, and you use a fictitious observer for a central point. So the answer is like, yeah, there's always distortion because they are just projections. They're inherently flawed, right? Like none of them are actual realities.
When you say fictitious observer, do you mean that they take the person to be at the center of the Earth?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, but that is the same angle that you'd be on the surface. It's the same angle.
Yeah, but you're just like admitting that, yeah, you just have to presuppose the idea of some fictitious observer in the center of a globe. You
don't have to. It could be on the surface. It'd be the same angle. You're just taking that and saying that it means something, but it doesn't mean anything because it's the same angle.
Well, if you actually utilize that method and then take the distances, then everything's 3,959 miles away from you in the sky.
Right. No, I'm saying that if you're talking about the angle from the fictitious observer to the celestial sphere is the same regardless of if you're at the middle or on the surface. because the line would go through that person on the surface, right?
Yeah, but you still to know where you allegedly would be on the surface to get that angle, you have to actually have the sphere, thus the center of it, to go get that angle in the first place. You would say, yeah, if you do have the sphere, you assume the fictitious observer in the center, then you're on the surface, it's the same. Yeah, because the angle has to still come out from the center to actually claim that that's what the angle is in relation to. It requires a fictitious observer in the center. Right.
So I guess where I'm getting confused, I just want to go back to where when we keep talking about, you're saying it's an affirming the consequent. Where I get confused, isn't that just a wording thing? So if we say if the Earth is a sphere of 3959 in circumference, then the horizon can be no more than blah 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 blah. When we just leave out refraction from that equation, but let's just leave the equation alone. So can't I word then my supposition the same way? So can I say if the Earth is flat and the sun goes around in a circle, in a clockwise circle, then there can be no 24-hour sun in Antarctica. There is a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, so the Earth is not flat. What's wrong with? I just worded it exactly like your black swan. Why is that not okay?
I didn't even hear exactly how you said it.
Okay, so the black swan is if the Earth is a sphere of 3959 miles. So that's the presupposition. You have to make that assumption. Okay, if the Earth is a sphere and if it's 3959, then the horizon can only be this distance based on this math. We go out and observe and it's actually not that. Therefore, we've now falsified the globe. Okay, so if we change that to now, if the Earth is flat and it has a sun that goes around in 24 hours in a clockwise motion, then the south cannot have a sun that circles the opposite direction. And if it does, we go out and observe. Guess what? We went and saw that it does do that. Therefore, the flat Earth has been falsified. What's different about my claim than the flat Earth?
Because for one, you're just like claiming there's like no apparent sun, and then straw manning putting the argument or putting
You're
the claim
doing the same
on
thing with refraction.
No,
nothing here says nothing.
The
Here
globe
says
model
refraction.
is just claimed. There's just a definitive geometric claim. There's a physical geometric horizon. So like,
What do you think? So what's not claimed in a flat Earth? Do we claim that the sun goes around? Yes.
well,
So-
I mean,
so we've had an additional 2 minutes back and forth on top of each other's answers.
Let us finish that one though. I want to finish that because this has bothered me the whole time. Is that I don't understand how Nathan Oakley goes around telling
Hang
people.
on, let me give you guys 3 minutes, and I'm going to pause the timer. Okay.
Thank you. So I just want to know why it's not the same. So in that sentence, if the Earth is a sphere, 3959, then the horizon can be no further. Okay, great. But what they're not mentioning there is that there's refraction that causes things to be higher up. So when we do go observe, if we do see it a little higher up, that doesn't falsify the globe. It means refraction is there. Now I'm just saying it doesn't mean that that's a fact. It means if that's the claim by the globe, then we have to at least look into it, not just dismiss it. But when I try and put that into a flat Earth saying, now all of a sudden it's not allowed. I can't say if the Earth is flat then and has a sun circling 24 hours in a clockwise formation. Those two things are part of the flat Earth model. So it's the same thing as saying if the Earth is a sphere 3959. Then they say, then the horizon can be no more than, well, then the sun cannot do backward circles in the south. It doesn't go along with our premise at the beginning of this. We went and observed it does do backward circles in the south, so therefore the Earth cannot be flat. So I agree. I would actually agree that that is not a correct statement, but I'm actually trying to point out more that the flat Earth statement is incorrect. That you can't just, because they didn't even take refraction into account. I don't understand how you go around telling other people that they are using and affirming the consequent when that's what the flat Earth is doing. They're saying, oh, well, we don't see curvature, therefore the Earth's flat. Hey, we don't see water bend, therefore the Earth's flat. You are the ones doing that. No, that's, so I don't understand where there's this, globe Earth is doing that, but the flat Earth, we just say that the Earth's not a globe. And no, you're going around making claims, and those claims are, not holding up when you actually, like water doesn't bend. What? Water does bend. It's probably the most bendable substance that there is. Go pour it on your body.
Austin-
Does it bend around you? All right, go ahead.
Austin, what's your response here?
okay, yeah, this is an argument from ignorance. So it's like X is true because you cannot prove that X is false. There's the assumption of a conclusion, like because of the lack of evidence to the contrary, right? And that's an argument from ignorance. But it's very specific. For one, I want to say this: you're saying like you didn't even account for refraction. You keep saying that, like. Okay, no, just because someone said a word because they needed to say that something is not where it's supposed to be doesn't mean that it's real. What type of refraction? Terrestrial refraction? How does that work? All of a sudden, when they change what refraction is and apply it to something that isn't even analogous and take the actual physical horizon and say something's looming whenever the horizon's looming, when looming is a relation to the horizon, right? They just said the word refraction because the horizon wasn't where it's supposed to be. So when we say, yo, here's a physical geometric limitation based on the assumption that the Earth's a globe, the evidence doesn't match that. That's like a very rigid, specific geometric physical claim that comes from the globe. We tested it. It's false. It's falsified. And just saying the word refraction doesn't work, right?
Just saying the word falsified when you haven't taken into the account that what their explanation is.
That's the point. We did take it into account, and we actually have to ask them to even specify it. And when you actually get into the quote unquote expert that they cite, he actually uses planar geometry, and then he doesn't actually apply Snell's law. It's a singular medium differential. And then he actually, people on the internet totally exclude that part, and they just act like, oh, we know this works because it's refraction, and they claim it's looming when looming is in relation to the actual horizon. So and it's a category error, and they just reify the R value, right? And then they just expand it. They just take everything in question.
I just think that when you're talking about that particular issue, it's funny that Bo says he went out there and that was one observation of 6 months. So what Flat Earth seems to have done is gone out and waited until there was enough refraction that the back water was way up higher, and it looks like the horizon is super far away. And so then we took that observation and said we refuted the globe, which is insane because you just got done saying that we don't take one observation and we don't say from that we destroyed something. We don't take the one observation of the sun and say that we proved the globe, but you will take the one observation of the 1 out of 180 days of a higher horizon and then say that falsifies the globe.
Dude, this is super important that you're not understanding the difference here. The globe model makes a very specific claim that, if the Earth, this is what the black swan is, if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3,959 miles, then the horizon is a physical geometric edge, physical obstruction, physical geometric horizon is at 1.225 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That is the globe's claim. They made a positive, definitive,
mathematical,
specific claim. It's a very specific, it's a mathematical claim about a very real physical thing. It's a physical location.
Don't ever work that way.
This is the point. The globe makes that very specific claim. You're over here, then you say, well, flat Earth can't be true because if we assume that the sun's in an actual position and then I tell you what the map should be, then the sun shouldn't do this. That's not the same thing at all. There's a geometric refutation on the table because of a positive claim. It's physical, and refraction doesn't work for the black swan, by the way. But you're saying the word. I explained why, because you actually have to assume the R value, and then it's a category error. You just extend it out infinitely because they say that it's looming. Looming is an effect in relation to the horizon.
Yeah, but you're just using words, though. Well, is refraction real?
Oh, dude, you just hit me with I'm just using words, bro.
Well, you just used words, a bunch of words that don't make
was that word salad?
I didn't want to say word salad. I didn't bring the little Hidden Valley Ranch.
Come on, man.
With your face on. No, I mean.
All right, guys. All right. We've spent a lot of time on this one.
Hey, go ahead.
We got quite a few questions here. The audience are thoroughly enjoying this. The questions are really rolling in here. This one is for Austin. Austin, what is NavCell and how does it apply?
Wow. So like dyslexic question. Cell nav.
NavCell, NavCell.
Okay, well, I'm saying like cell nav, like celestial navigation, right? So this is like a super important part, right? When we're talking about how I was explaining how that they always say 1 degree per 69 miles, they act like it's proof the Earth's a globe. We can go out there, we know how to navigate perfectly because we can just assume we know the Earth's a globe, so it's curving at a certain rate. So as I go across the surface, I'm tipping at a specific angle at a certain rate. So the stars are going to change based on that angle. 1 mile or 1 degree per 69 miles. That actually isn't true. It doesn't work like that. It regularly needs corrections, and they tell you can't even utilize the angles like all the way up to like roughly like 15 degrees, and then around even the 9 degrees. What? There should be no refraction looking straight up, right? But if there's actually curved visual space, we expect that. So then how do they correct it, right? So so if you say like, do they just use like an apparent raw angle or the celestial refraction corrected angle? And they're using the corrected angle, right? You're claiming that it's refraction. That's somehow what's going to fix it. So then is it a solution? Do we actually use certain variables for a refraction equation and that's how we fix it? No, they actually use like empirically derived solution, meaning like the answer is empirically derived. They actually use different formulas for every like angle band, right? Like every segment of the angles. So the input is just height and or angles. There's no temperature, there's no pressure at all in those corrections. So it proves it has nothing to do with refraction. It's actually an empirical physical correction, right? Normal refraction has temperature and pressure. Celestial refraction does not. So that's a big problem, right? I mean, how does that work? And the answer is the way that it works. It's just because it needs to work. It just has to work. So that's what's so frustrating about it is that is brought up as if direct evidence for the globe. That's like it's terrible for the globe. Doesn't work at all. They claim refraction, but don't actually use refraction equations or variables. They don't even use like temperature and pressure. They aren't even claiming like actual refraction. right? They're using empirically derived angle measurement corrections, and they're using planar geometry to do that. So, celestial navigation is not good for the globe at all.
All right. Thank you, Austin. Jeran, did you want to address this one?
Yeah, I just
The question-
he keeps saying that the 69 miles per degree doesn't work, but if that's the case, then we wouldn't have your latitude lines, which are all over the earth. Wherever you live right now, you have a latitude. The reason you have that latitude is it's the angle from where you're at to the pole star. So clearly, everywhere is mapped, everywhere is correct. And if we take the distances between those lines, we will figure out that it's 69 miles for every single degree. And if you times that by 360, you get 24,901. So I don't know where you would ever start thinking that, oh no, it doesn't, they don't actually use it because of refraction. And when it gets close, we're not talking about that. Everybody's latitude is known, and it's their angle to the pole star. That's how we map the earth. So again, for it not to work would be that you have people where they're not actually at, but we know that anybody who's at 37 degrees, go out tonight and measure the angle to Polaris, it will be 37 degrees. That's what it will be. And the other thing is are you trying to use the Nathan Oakley line that we can't measure angles from a curved baseline? Is that what you kind of are saying something close to that, but I can't tell if it's what you're trying to say is the same thing? When you're saying that we,
No.
okay.
No, but the actual extension of the baseline is a problem for the globe. The actual accurate extension of it.
Yeah, because I don't think that's what they're actually taking it for, right? Because like if I were to ask you, if I went outside my house, if the earth was a sphere or if it was flat, would I have the same outside my house? Be identical, right? There'd be no way.
Real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt, guys, but it looks like it shows that the webinar is about to end in 4 minutes. Is there a way that we can extend it, or will it automatically turn off?
Man, I don't think it should automatically turn off, but I'm gonna try to check it. Yikes. If anyone else is in here and can help at the same time, that'd be great. I'm gonna go try to change it.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, the pressure's on. We technically could start another one, but that would be really lame.
Can I pee?
4 hours, save.
I'm gonna go. Oh,
Did it change? Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. All right.
So, but if we went
We've
outside
got
my
about
house,
another minute on this, and we'll move on.
Thank you. So if I went outside my house, though, Austin, the Earth would not. I mean, the observations would not change if the Earth was flat or a sphere, correct? Of the size that they say.
Wait, what did you say?
So in my front yard, if the Earth was sphere or if it was flat, would that change my front yard? If the Earth was okay, so then we can take angles to stars from quote unquote curved baselines because it wouldn't make a difference one way or the other. You're using the latitude. You're using the tangent, which is technically the flat Earth.
Well, technically, like if you want to ask technically, like on the smallest, most imaginable scale ever, our front yards would be different technically, but practically,
Right, okay, but I'm talking about
practically,
angles. If we're taking an angle to Polaris.
technically, but like practically, no. But the issue is that we utilize an extension of a horizontal baseline. And again, when we actually take these angles and they don't match, we have to make corrections. And what does the globe claim? The globe claims refraction, but do they actually account with refraction formulas? No, they don't take temperature and pressure and make the corrections. They actually take strictly height, strictly angles, and planar geometry to make the corrections. So to actually make it work, you have to make the Earth flat on top of acting like it's flat, on top of measuring like it's flat, and then you claim that's the proof it's a globe.
Well, that's what you would do if the globe was the size that they say. You wouldn't start treating it like a sphere when we don't even notice that. You would treat it like it's flat with a tangent. But I just have one question. You said again that if they have to make adjustments, nobody's making adjustments to their latitude, right? I mean, if I'm 37 degrees because that's my angle to the pole star, there's no adjustment to that. Nobody's adjusting that. Anybody, at least, I mean, I would like to hear somebody tell me that there's a location on the Earth that's off by more than 1 degree. I don't think that's even possible. Like you're telling me that there's somebody at 47 degrees that measures the angle to the Polaris and it's 53 degrees? No.
Well,
what I'm saying, there is no refraction getting in the way of our latitude, and our latitude lines are a certain distance away from each other. And if you measure those out, they equal to the 24,901. So I get that you're saying, oh, that's just some arbitrary math. Well, no, it's not, because we have the Earth mapped. So
okay, but longitude and latitude is how was that accomplished? It was reverse engineered from observations of the sky, right? And then they actually apply correction. They apply correction angles over long distances. Didn't actually go physically measure anything. They do calculative corrections over long distances, right? That's what they do. This is where we go all the way back to what we were talking about earlier, which is like, well, how are we actually seeing? Because you're presupposing we're seeing in perfectly straight lines infinitely, and that the only reason the stars are changing is because I'm tipping over on a ball, and we actually don't see that. So if I say the Earth's a plane and we don't see in perfectly straight geometry, it's curved visual space. You say no, actually, we see in perfect straight lines infinitely far, and there's nothing between us and the stars is how we can see it, and they're crazy far away. Like, okay, let's go test it out. Which one matches reality? It's actually the first one, because when we start to get to like 15 or even more degrees close to the horizon, it all begins to get logarithmic and compressed in as if it was converging in curved visual space. It would not do that. And it's not just refraction, because again, it also that you're not allowed to use up close to 90. That's where the refraction was supposed to be the least when you're looking straight up, right? That's what they say. They say you look straight up, there should be basically no refraction.
Should be none.
They cannot use close to 90 because, well, if it's curved visual space on both close to 90 and the edge, you would expect there to be an actual logarithmic change. It wouldn't be a 1-to-1 linear ratio. And that's what we see in reality. And conveniently, they'll never tell you that. We have to go look at the actual manuals and find out, wait a minute, why did they tell me I can't use this? I thought it was super easy, 1 degree per 69 miles. It's not. This makes perfect sense. It's exactly what we expect if visual space is curved. So now we expect it off. It's real simple, like caveman math, let's use straight lines. But, that's what they say.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we need to move on to
Go.
another question real quick. Casey's asking, I hear ball earthers routinely invoke the argument that flat earthers don't have a map. However, it would seem to require a king's commission for such an undertaking. What kind of assets and costs do you both believe are associated with the creation of map making?
Well,
Jeran, you go first.
we've already done it. You can make observations of the sun. We know where the tropics are. We know where the equator is. Once you have that, you verify the continent shape, which we've pretty much already done, and the layout, which is pretty much already done. So there is, the reason that they say there's no map is there's no map that matches real world observations. You can draw a flat earth map and be happy with it if you want. The A map works for just drawing it. And it actually, if you look at Dave's app, it actually kind of shows where the sun would be above for the most part, as long as you don't go too far south. But regardless of that, it might be a king's undertaking, but it would be fruitless because we've already mapped the earth. And so you're not going to come out with anything. If it's flat, then you would come out with the AE map. I mean, there's no other way. It doesn't matter what you map out. You're not going to get continents. Africa is not going to be on the other side of South America. It doesn't work. It doesn't happen because the sun goes in the order that we know. So therefore, we know the layout of the earth, and it has been tried on different shapes, and it only works on one. And that's will forever be that way. I've now realized that. There'll never be a way that you can match observations of the what we see with a flat world, because the earth's not flat. So it's unfortunate, by the way. Unfortunately.
Austin, would you like to address this one? What kind of assets and costs do you believe are associated with the creation of map making?
That's something insane that's impossible to even fathom. For one, like free exploration, and then of course in today's day and age, probably lots of money as well. But it's much more about the resources, the amount of people, and the amount of time that it would actually take to do it. It's not particularly realistic. Like, yeah, sure, we have some maps, but they're just maps. This is actually the problem: is people, Jeran, really, you think that there has to be an accurate map of reality, and there will never be one. There will never be one. There's not even one of the globe. You think the globe is accurate, but you're correct.
You're not going to let you say that.
Wait. The globe is made from a coordinate system. The globe is made from a coordinate system. That's all that it is. You presuppose the actual sphere. Then you're going to look at the sky. You're going to reverse engineer the coordinate system. Then you're going to make the map based on that coordinate system. That's why you're going to always have distortion. It's just a projection. And you can move the center around, and then it changes. Am I
Are you
lagging?
saying the globe? The globe has. You just said that the globe is a projection, or is the globe an actual model of the Earth?
The map's a projection. All the maps are projections. That's
I'm
what I
not
said.
talking about a map. I'm talking about the globe Earth. The globe model with the 3D globe with some people on this side, some people on this side, some people upside down from the other people. That map, that globe model.
What about it?
Well, because it's
made from a coordinate system.
Yeah, that's how you would make it. That's how would you make?
Do you not get the
Earth?
point though? It's not about how you would make anything. It's like we just make the coordinate system using the sky, reverse engineer it, and then we make the maps based on that. So, okay, so you have to presuppose it again. You have to reify and affirm.
Sure, but that's what you do. If you're going to test things, you presuppose something and then see if it matches observations. So if we presuppose a flat Earth, we notice that it doesn't match observations. If you presuppose a globe, it does. That's the difference.
Well, first of all, coordinate systems are not the same as like physical datum, like physical measurements. And we actually take physical measurements and take actual datum. They're horizontal consistently. This is what we keep on talking about. We take the coordinate system, we presuppose the globe, we make a coordinate system, reverse engineer it, then we're going to make projections and maps. That's why maps are so blown out of proportion in this discussion, they're useless. That doesn't matter. When it comes to the truth of the matter, it doesn't matter at all. Literally.
The map is flat, and a flat map can never match the real world. That's why.
Just in general, the maps are just projections. They're just merely conceptual and they can be changed around. This is the important part.
If the Earth was flat, if the Earth was flat, wouldn't we be able to map it easily?
No. The problem is, again, the way that could we in theory, sure, maybe, but the actual problem is the way that we did it, which is we took a coordinate system. We created a coordinate system. So they presuppose the globe, they reify it, and then take coordinate systems based on that, and then they make a map, and then they create that projection, and we can move it around however we want to. But they don't take, again, this is the difference. Calculative assumption that creates the coordinate system, or physically, empirically measured datum on the surface, which always matches flat. This goes back to what we were talking about, where, okay, well, we can find out the truth of the matter. Let's go look and see what happens when we move along the Earth. When we move along the Earth, we cannot assume it's a globe. It doesn't work. We have to make corrections. Oh, it's refraction. Okay, then let's go. What do we have to correct for? Pressure and temperature and optical variables in the sky, right? No, that's not how we make the corrections. We make physical measurements, empirically derived corrections with just angles and height, and we have to fix and cook the books because the globe doesn't match. So that proves that the actual coordinate system isn't correct. So how do we get the coordinate system? Because however we got it isn't correct. The presupposition was that it's a globe. Then we made a celestial coordinate system. Then we made a map. Then we flattened that globe out. And people say, look, this flattened globe out is distorted. It's like, yeah, of course it is.
Right. Austin, I got to jump in real quick.
Okay.
You're definitely on a roll, so I'm going to stop real quick. We got a few more questions that we need to get to. This one is from John, is asking for Jeran. Do you now believe that the weak force of gravity holds all southern oceans onto the bottom of the sphere? And if you do believe that, what type of gravity? Is it Einsteinian? Is it Newtonian?
Yeah, I think
gravity holds the atmosphere. Is it being equilibrium with the vacuum of space?
I don't know. What seems to make this the most sense, because I think that the Earth proves itself to be a sphere. So therefore, the idea that the center of the Earth has some sort of attractive force seems to make sense, because that's what we experience. So there is no water being held to the bottom of the globe. That would require the pressure to be going the other direction. The water is being held to the globe like the water in the north is, like the water everywhere is. It's all the same. There is no difference. There's nobody who's upside down. To be upside down, you have to have your head where your feet should be. But on the Earth, your feet should be at the ground towards the center of the Earth. That's where you are. That's where everybody is. So there is nobody upside down. Now you could say, well, what about the guy way up there in the north versus the guy down there in the south, Jeran? Are they upside down compared to each other? That's a different story. That would be a yes. But they're not upside down themselves. So to make questions about how do we hold water, how do we hold boats, how do we hold ships, is basically admitting that you don't have a full grasp of what they mean by gravity and how it works.
Okay, thank you, Jeran. Austin, would you like to address this one?
Sorry, I was changing it over. Yeah, can you just remind me what it was?
Yeah, it's
gravity.
Do we now believe the weak force of gravity holds all the southern oceans on the bottom of the sphere?
Yeah.
And if it is gravity, what type? Einsteinian or Newtonian?
Sorry, it was so gay I forgot it. Obviously I don't believe in any of that nonsense. I don't believe in gravity's terribly debunked and impossible, and everything's intrinsically electric. And I guess this is kind of the point I was trying to make to Jeran, and more of a meta, right? Which is like, you're honing in on something that you're like, okay, I can't explain this on the flat Earth, so it can't be flat. But it's like, okay, so what about all these other things that we know you're not going to be able to explain on the globe? Because you actually require gravity as the prerequisite to ever even claim it's a globe. And, inclusion directly to the question, no, I absolutely do not believe in that, because gravity's been debunked 1,000 times over. And simply because they need the globe, they need the heliocentric model, they need the Copernican principle, they had to come up with some crazy nonsense where, time and distances magically contract and slow down to match whatever they need for the Earth.
Do you think it could be something else, though? Like, there's a guy, I was just reading his theory the other day. I know it sounds crazy. It's called the trillion years theory. But it's the theory that there's a black hole at the middle of every sphere, that the black hole at the middle of the sun, black hole at the middle of the Earth, and that's what's attracting things to it. So it's not gravity per se. So, I mean, that's where I kind of am saying that the Earth will always be a sphere. Just like all your friends that are geocentrists, Robert Sungenis, Robert Bennett, all these PhD guys, they all believe the Earth is a sphere. Everybody, Tycho Brahe, Copernicus, you name them, they all believe the Earth was a sphere. And there's a reason for that, because the Earth is a sphere.
Well, now you boldly appealed to majority.
No, it's not appealed to majority. So you're saying that we have today a flat Earth theory that has no map, no model, no explanations, you can't even tell me what the Earth looks like. You can't even say, oh, it looks like this, because what
you appealed to majority, now you're shifting the burden I don't want to be super cutthroat and just hit you with what your fallacies you're using, but you are using lots of fallacies. But like to
Yeah, I
answer
mean,
in good faith, like it's like, who cares? Actually, I talked to Dr. Bennett and he said that he sits in the rooms and he's like, wow, I don't know how to answer these reputations of the globe. He hasn't focused on that. He didn't say like he's for sure that the Earth's a globe. It has to be a globe. Da da da. But I want to ask the question everyone here wants to know from you, right? Like, do you think the Earth is moving?
it seems to make sense that's where you would get, easier observations. Otherwise, if you're geocentrist, then you have to move everything around the Earth at crazy speeds, faster than the speed of light. It seems kind of funny.
Dude, so do you not see why people are like, what is going on right now? Like that what? You know that the evidence has shown that the Earth is not moving. We maybe will have another
Well,
debate
you
or
wouldn't
something.
have-
Real quick,
you
guys,
wouldn't-
let me jump
hold on,
in
but
with
you
this
wouldn't-
next question, which is exactly what you're talking about. Okay. Roger's asking, why are the measurements of the ether ignored? The MMX, the Dayton Miller, Bob, and many others, along with Aries failure, which shows the Earth is not in motion.
Okay, Jeran,
Jeran, would you like to go
Yeah,
first?
I mean, to me, it shows that the Earth is not in motion through any kind of an ether that they tried to test, at least the way they tested it. So again, to those things, that seems to me to be such a high level physics thing that's out of my wheelhouse. And it used to be important to me because I thought we were lied to about the shape of the Earth or where we lived. And I no longer think that's the case. Now, I think they could be wrong. Obviously, I think they're wrong about dark matter, dark energy. Even there could be gravity issues. There could be maybe we haven't gone to the moon. Maybe we can't get out of low Earth orbit. There's a lot of other things, but I'm not making those claims today. My claim is that the evidence shows us where we live. And I think that in order to believe that you live on a flat Earth, you have to then believe in a deceptive God. You have to believe that a God made the Earth answerable with one word, sphere, but it's really not. It's actually flat, and it's actually this, and well, no. Why would God make it so that it's answerable by saying flat? Why would it be so easy to say, hey, how come it's an upside down sun and moon? Oh, you're upside down and you're on a ball. Oh, why is there backwards moving? Because you're on a ball. Oh, well, why is there a south celestial pole? Oh, because you're on a ball. Oh, so all the answers of you're on a ball suffice. Yet we're supposed to believe that that's not the truth. The truth is really that God made a flat Earth, but just happened to make the mistake of making it also answerable by being on a sphere. Now, the difference is we can map the Earth. We have it mapped on a sphere, and it matches every single observation, every one. And on a flat Earth, it matches none. That's the difference. So you can keep believing in the flat Earth if you want, but it's not going to come along. You're not going to, down the road, figure out that there's some answer, because look how long it's been. There's been no answer. There's a reason why Lady Blount in 1895 was saying, well, there is a southern sun, but we can't explain it. Well, now we're 150 years past that. And there hasn't even been an attempt, because people have realized what I realized. Oh, any flat map will be the AE map, and the AE map doesn't match reality. Therefore, I hate to tell you, the Earth cannot be flat. It's time to just grow up and say, okay, let's move on to actual real conspiracies, and let's stop teaching kids lies. I did it for 10 years. It makes me sick that I thought so completely about the South being a lie that I based my entire idea of the Earth on that on that point. And when I went and found out that that's not the case, now everything else is a mess. So I see what Austin's saying, where you're like, what's going on? Now you believe that we're spinning. Now you believe. No, it's not a matter of that. It's the Earth is a ball. It shape is a sphere, and that can be realized by yourself. You can go out tonight or sunset, watch the sunset, call a friend in the South, have them watch the sunset go the other direction, and you know you're on a sphere, because there's no flat map that will ever account for that. But the sphere model is exactly that. How would the Earth be modeled
Thank you, Jeran, for
perfectly?
your answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for cutting me off.
Austin, did you want to address this one? Why is measurements of ether ignored? MMX, Dayton Miller, Bob, and many others, along with Aries failure.
Yeah, of course. And like Jeran knows the answer to this. It's because it actually has philosophical implications that the Earth is in a special and unique position. If the Earth's in the center of everything, how did it get there? And that is the answer as a creator. It was placed there. There was some type of intelligent design. You can actually prove that with the first and second law of thermodynamics. Doesn't matter though. Like that's why it's so glaringly obvious if the Earth is in the center that it was placed there, that they run away from it. And they say this, and Jeran, again, you know that as well. Like they just straight up tell you. Wait, bro. I don't interrupt you, bro. Like they straight up tell you, right, why they do that. All geocentrists are globers. That doesn't matter. Like we're talking, like the question is, this like now I have beef with you, intellectual beef though, right? But my point is that it's like, how all of a sudden are you going to flip on that? Oh, maybe it makes more sense. It'd have to go faster than the speed of light. No, actually, even in the theory of relativity, according to his own equations, that the actual stars can go faster than the speed of light based on the presence of the strength of the gravitational field and the immensity of masses. And in relativity itself, it can actually go faster than the speed of light. Actually, doesn't have to, because we have to presuppose distances to even claim that, and we have to claim the finite speed of light in the first place. But MMX absolutely showed the Earth was not moving. So now we're in the world where we're just invoking insanity, right? Just pure insanity that the measuring apparatus contracted, but it looks exactly the same size, time slowed down, just coincidentally the exact right amount to make us think that
I
the
don't
Earth is
agree with that. I
stationary,
don't
but
believe
it's actually not. But we can't just, I don't agree with that, but it could still be moving. That doesn't make any sense. Like, it isn't moving. The answer, and Aries failure proves definitively that it's not moving. And this is kind of like the issue. This is the issue. This is, you said, but now I was just thought we were lied to about the shape of the Earth. So now I don't really care about that. What do you mean? That's actually the inverse of how I feel, right? The most important
because
part
I-
of it almost is that the Earth is stationary, because that means it's in the
But
center
do you
and it was
believe in God no
created.
matter what? You believe in God no matter what? So for me, there's a creator no matter what, whether the Earth is out amongst the galaxies or whether it's the central point. Neither of those is going to make me, it's not like if I found out that heliocentrism was real, I'd be like, oh, there's no God, we're all here accidental. No, there's a God
That's the
regardless.
point. You just brought up the point about lying to children, and now you're saying it doesn't really matter now because I selfishly already believe in God. So who cares about children being told that we're flying
say that.
infinitely to a vacuum? You say, what's it matter? Because I already believe in God anyway. Well, what about the 6-year-old
Right.
who's being told that they're on a time spec that does free
Yeah,
falling
hopefully
through
we
an infinite
teach your,
void?
we'll teach your kids not to buy everything at school. That's one thing we should know right off the bat. We should know that already.
That isn't the point. Truth always matters. That was your whole point. And to answer the question directly and very concisely, the reason
Okay.
that it's ignored is because it has philosophical implications that the Earth
I
is in
agree
the
with that, right?
center.
We went on the same page.
Okay, well, it definitively shows that the Earth is not moving. Now, you have a stationary globe, and you know that that's really rough to deal with, and that's why you're like, well, maybe it is moving, because it just sounds
Well, I
ridiculous
think
that it's just
enough,
sitting there.
there's not enough people that have ever looked into it. There's not enough people that have thought about, could the Earth be at the center of everything and be spinning? Could it be? There's a lot of things that make you go, I don't know if that works. Well, it's
Well, if it's spinning, it has to revolve at the same time. They absolutely would have done that if they could have done that.
you have to revolve at the same time.
Based on the actual celestial observations, if they're spinning, it has to be revolving.
Jim, I'm gonna jump in real quick. We have
Well,
one.
I
we
want
have
to
a
see the
couple.
means
We have a few minutes left, just 2 minutes left actually, and a couple few questions that Jeran, do you want to take any more questions at this point, or
of it. Go ahead.
you guys want to keep going on where you're? Okay, so we got a question here from Casey asking, "Hi, Jeran. It's actually to both you, but mostly to Jeran. Hi, Jeran. I appreciate you and Austin. I admit
Thanks.
I'm embarrassed to admit I've listened to both of you for hundreds of hours. Thank you both. And Jeran, your change of mind was immediately following your trip. It would seem deep reflection would be necessary before concluding anything publicly. To me, your response seemed inorganic. Why didn't you ponder your view for a longer period?"
So that's multifaceted, but for one thing, I was the only one, if people remember, for 6 months prior to the trip, saying what it meant. That I was laying out the AE map that I believed in, said this is the map that I believe in. It's the map that Dave Weiss uses for his app. It's what everybody believes in, even though now they pretend like they don't. We're not talking about Austin. Austin has never, championed a model. But all flat earthers, this is why they have to say that TFE was fake, is because they actually do believe in the AE map, and they actually do know that the sun circling down there would falsify it. They just don't want to come out and say it, so they'd rather just say that the trip didn't happen. This way they don't have to worry about it. But the trip did happen, and the sun did do what falsifies the AE map. So it comes down to, remind me of the question, the premise?
Basically,
Why didn't you ponder longer
Why
before
didn't
you?
you
Right,
take
right.
longer before you
Gotcha.
publicly announced your decision?
Got you. So for 6 months, I was the one telling everybody this, because it was big to me. I did see it as an opportunity to either prove flat Earth or to detriment it, meaning that if the sun did set down there, then the flat Earth is pretty much it. Now we know that it's the case because it now refutes the globe. The globe is falsified with a setting sun in the south. So that was a hope. Now, talking to Austin, we both understood that as time got closer to that trip, we were like, shit, as it gets closer, I'm starting to think it might be a 24-hour sun there. But I already knew, and this is why everybody was arguing with me from, Brother Sanchez and Z and all these guys. They were all upset at me for saying that if I go down there and see a sun circling, then I'm going to come back and say that the globe model better matches reality. And that's just how I felt, because the AE map I knew would be gone. And for 6 months, I sat there with paper trying to draw it, trying to figure it out. And I just couldn't, I was like, oh my God, the tropics are a physical thing from the sun. Same thing with the equator. So we can't move those, and so are the continents. So therefore, it's an AE map every day or nothing. So that's why it was so easy. Now, when I got back and I saw everybody saying that it was a fake trip, I realized what we were dealing with, which was a shell of the former flat Earth. The Bob Nodells, the Rob Skiba flat Earth, the research flat Earth is gone. There is nobody left like that. There's people like Stephen Alfonso, who will just say that all flat maps predict a 24-hour sun. Completely and totally false. Everybody bought it, ran with it. That's what the new flat Earth is. St. Pierre coming up with basically what's his name? Walter Bislin's model, where now we introduce a second sun that happens to be placed exactly where the globe model says that the one sun is. and we call that a flat map that has some sort of answer. Nope, that's just lying and cheating and stealing from the globe. So everywhere I looked, all I found was people saying, you didn't go, you're a liar, or it doesn't matter, it's a nothing burger. So I realized, people who are flat earthers will forever be flat earthers because they refuse to acknowledge when something goes against their model. They'll just call it fake and they won't even deal with it. So there was nobody to go to the table with me. I thought, hey, we'll come back and we'll go to Zoom and we'll get together, go back to the drawing board and figure out what the map is. There's no such thing anymore. Flat earthers are so intolerant and so convinced, they don't even do that anymore. They don't even sit down and discuss things. They already think they have all the answers. They know it. Go look at Facebook, look at comments, look at posts. They just make crazy, rude statements about people and say, oh, you stupid idiots, what, a boat's upside down? And they're just so sure of themselves. And it's a sad thing to see because I don't think that they're right anymore. And I think that a lot of it is misunderstanding. And then there's just lies everywhere. You know that video where the astronaut's on the ISS and he drops a screw and it goes ding, ding, ding. And he goes, oh, we found out that's fake. A flat earther faked that. They made that scene. You can find the original. It doesn't drop any screw.
Yeah.
So there's like all these, which are very
Thank you for your
dark.
answer,
Sorry.
Jeran. That's we're going up on 3 minutes there. And last one is actually for Austin here. Austin, wouldn't Occam's razor tell us that if the globe matches all observations in the sky and distances on the ground, but no flat map can do either of those without distortion, that it's most likely a sphere?
Okay.
This guy should debate instead of me. Jesus.
Yeah, but it actually doesn't. Occam's razor actually doesn't do that, right? That's why I originally said the best argument you could try to make about the 24-hour sun, for example, because you just made claims that aren't true. Matches all the observations in the sky. No, they don't. I just specifically detailed multiple observations it doesn't match, and they're always hand wave dismissed. I'll look into it later, or refraction. I don't need to explain how.
I didn't hear anything specifically.
So, yeah. Specifically the star that was occulted by the mountain, and specifically that you can't even use celestial navigation 1 degree per 69 miles. But this is what I'm saying. Please don't interrupt me, bro. Like, this is what is always done. It's like these holistic claims as if they're just true. We're supposed to grant them. It matches everything, doesn't match anything on the flat earth. I told people, by the way, to the Globers, I'm like, the best argument you could make about the sun, the 24-hour sun, is Occam's razor. That which requires the least amount of assumptions is most likely to be true. So if I say, oh, well, I go down there because I'm just tipped over, right? Because I will throw this in here. Well, hey, if there was actually a satanic force, if Satan's actually real, I know you might take beef with that. If he wanted to deceive the world, well, maybe he would have greater knowledge of the way that the world works, and he'd be able to absolutely hijack the fact that in the South things change. So that doesn't sound like you appeal to like a philosophical grounds there. But I'm just gonna say Occam's razor. Okay, the problem with that actually though, it sounds good because the other argument is just affirming the consequent. That's no good. But Occam's razor sounds good until you realize, oh, actually, it doesn't require the least amount of assumptions, right? Because it requires me believe that the sun is 93 million miles away, that the stars are an infinite distance away. Thus, there's nothing in between us so that we can see that. And that perspective doesn't affect the sky like it affects everything else with special pleading. Then I claim that actually my physical orientation is why I saw the sun that way. So it requires way more assumptions before you can talk about observing the sun in the first place. So Occam's razor doesn't even apply the 24-hour sun with the globe. So my answer is, if your hypothetical was true, if no observations ever matched, and yeah, sure, with specifically celestial observations, Occam's razor would benefit the globe, but that isn't actually the case. That isn't how it works at all. So you're incorrect. In fact, celestial navigation observations, the angles to the star observations, the celestial theodolite observations with the mountain obscuring it, etc., actually perfectly match the flat Earth. We can predict where it's going to be based on the flat Earth using plane geometry, and it doesn't match the globe. So the base premise that you baked in there actually isn't correct. And I do just want to make this one more meta point right here. Is like, based on the story that Jeran just said. And wait, can we do closings? Because I don't like.
We didn't discuss it, but do you guys want to do closing?
Closings or something?
Yeah,
3 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, we'll just do that because I don't want to go too long. I want to kind of address some of the stuff that Jeran said though, right? Because he kind of went on a bit about the whole thing, and I want to kind of address it. But so to wrap that up, like, no, actually, Occam's razor doesn't apply because you made a claim that isn't true about how it always matches the globe, doesn't match flat Earth. That isn't actually the case, and I've given multiple examples. So you're actually isolating a singular observation that requires multiple assumptions prior to you were even going to claim Occam's razor, which means it requires many assumptions. So Occam's razor doesn't apply. That's the direct answer.
Okay, thank you. All right, if you guys want to do closings, 3 minutes each. Jeran is the affirmative, so he would go first.
Okay, I think people can go back and look at the debate. I mean, if there were known anomalies with observations that the globe predicts, and what I'm just talking about is simple sunrise, sunset, angles, and times. Those are predicted by the sphere, and they are match everywhere on the earth. There's nowhere you could go and say, oh, now I look at Google Earth and it's off by 3 hours. When Austin's talking about the stars or something being off, he's talking about tiny little bits, like a degree, something. So it's the earth is still a sphere. If you're off a degree every once in a while, that's not going to make it flat. And to picture for yourself, an earth that is flat is going to have much different geometry than an earth that is a sphere. It meaning that you can't tell, here's my new belief. I no longer think you can lie to people about the shape of the earth unless they want to be lied to. Okay, what I mean by that is people can make observations. So if somebody comes and tells you you live on a dodecahedron, you can go out and make observations and figure out that you don't, because what the dodecahedron would call for isn't matching our real world. So if the earth is not a sphere, then we would be able to show where observations of a location somewhere in the world doesn't match what the sphere says it will, and we don't see that. So even if Austin says that we do, he can't name one. Just name one. Just tell me, like, oh, well, in Jakarta, India, whatever, they're supposed to be at 27 degrees latitude, but actually the angle to the star is 38, something like that. That would be, then you'd say, oh, there's a problem with the globe. But the globe is perfect. The globe has complete symmetry. 90 degrees south, 90 degrees north. Each place you move up, 80, 70, 60, is identical 6 months later from the other place. We have 12-hour days and 12-hour nights on the equinox for everybody. And then moving north or south, the daylight hours change perfectly, meaning that in the summer for the north, you would have 0 daylight hours at the South Pole, and you would start moving your little marker up, and it would go up perfectly until you get to 24 hours of daylight at the North Pole. That's impossible on any other shape. The fact that you have the sun going different directions. For a flat Earth, that's a paradox. For a globe Earth, it's a feature of living on the globe. For me, again, I just want to end it with this. I'm not concerned yet with the spin, everything else yet, because I'm trying to get people to understand that we live on a sphere, that you can go figure that out yourself. You don't need help. You don't need mathematics. You don't need your professor or NASA or anybody. You can do it yourself. I was going to show you tonight. I didn't get around to doing that, but I even put a GoPro on a globe, spun it, like they say, looked at the observations of the light and what it does, and then matched that, and it matches exactly what we see. So therefore, we live on a sphere. It would be impossible that we didn't. And the only way that we can let them get away with supposedly lying about it is that if we let them, meaning that, like, you guys are, we all as flat earthers just believe they were lying to us, even though we can make observations that tell us that they're not. We can make observation. Now, I'm not saying all observation. I'm not saying that Austin's wrong about a lot of what he's saying. About the shape of the earth is the globe will be globe forever. I hate to tell you, and believe me, it's unfortunate for me. I don't want it that way. I'm lost my channel. My channel's going to be gone. I'm going to be off of YouTube because I told truthers the truth. That's the problem.
All right. Thank you, Jeran, for those closing statements. Austin, 3 minutes. I'll begin when you start talking. You're on mute.
Thank you. One of the things that you keep on saying goes against something that you've said for many, many years, and is that people knew that the Earth was flat for thousands of years without a model, and now all of a sudden we absolutely have to have one. We have to have one because of a singular, isolated observation, right? That the globe explanation for actually isn't even sufficient. It has insane, preposterous presuppositions before we even get to observing the sun. You just look at the final outcome, right? You don't even hold those previous presuppositions at any type of a scrutiny. And I'm just pointing out that you used to repeatedly and adamantly point out, dude, what? We don't have to have a perfect model. For thousands of years, people knew the Earth was flat without a model. Now we need one specifically for one observation. Everything else gets thrown out the window. But so if Jeran had a justified belief that the Earth was planar and stationary, then a 24-hour sun over his head in the south would not falsify either planar or stationary. It only does that if he's affirming the consequent and or did not have a justified belief that the Earth was planar and stationary. Therefore, why would anyone accept his new belief that it's a globe is a justified one, considering his previous belief could not have been justified? So basically, it's just the ontological premise in which you're reaching these conclusions are flawed intrinsically in both situations. And so what I will say in closing, this is what everyone's so perplexed about, is you keep, what it sounds like to me is in the answer to the question of why you didn't take your time or whatever. And because I was there, bro, and I had your back, and I didn't turn on you, and I still haven't, and I'm not going to, but I was there, right? And I talked to you after the plane. I know it was a genuine, sincere experience and moment that you had on the plane, and I was there, bro. I was there. And I got turned on just like you did. You may think you got it worse. I don't know. I think in a way, maybe I got it worse. But this is the thing, right? It's like the reason that people are so perplexed and so confused is because seemingly what happened was you came back and like you said, we're going to go to the whiteboard. Let's get on Zoom meetings. Let's figure it out. Some of us did do that. You said that's not what happened. That's not what flat earthers did. Well, no, actually some of us did do that. You have, again, you don't like it, but Joe Hanvey has shown many different possibilities. I've seen a few different possibilities, and simply the sun's in an apparent position, but you didn't actually do that. What you did was you come back, you realize, yes, there were some people that absolutely, that they pissed me off too. I've taken a break. Because these people just acted crazy, right? And they started attacking us. And then, like you said, they clearly did reify and internalize the AE model. And then they're like, wow, this would disprove it. So they started calling us liars. They started attacking us. They did everything that we stood against or claimed to stand against when it came to the globe, right? Just presupposing a belief and internalizing it. And whatever doesn't go along with it, we're going to turn against it. But what you've now done is kind of stereotype and holistically generalize all of us, throw us in a basket. This is why people are getting triggered with you, right? Because when you say things, you're like, you say flat earthers as if we all do that. We didn't all do anything. Right. And so, yes, in a way, in the grand scheme of things, this is going to be way beneficial for flat earth because, yeah, the cultish, like dishonest people popped their head out. And so we realized, whoa, dude, we were so focused on this phenomenon on the other side or with other people or with the mainstream, we didn't realize that they were right around us as well. And so that absolutely did happen. And I stand right beside you against those people that just all turned on us. But in conclusion, I will say this is the issue. You are basically just saying it can only be this way. And you're not actually examining all the presuppositions baked in. You're not actually logically assessing it because it requires presuppositions to even make the final affirming of the consequent. That is a major point that I want you to think about because you are not you're all of a sudden able to hyper focus and isolate that singular observation and then put all of the other evidence aside, all the refutation, say, well, whatever the globe answer is, it must be true because I know it has to be a globe now. And that is not the proper way to look at it at all. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you, Austin, about the people. It's just, I think I look at it and I see that there isn't the group of people that there was before. I know you're saying that there was and you were on Discord. But really what it comes down to is that when, let's say somebody in the future goes down now, they're not even going to want to go because of what happened to us. So what we've done is we've created a cult that will not accept that their information might be wrong. They can't accept like, oh, there's an observation that goes against us. It was fake. We were some of the top flat earthers that there are. You and I don't know what number you want to put out, top 10, something like that. But they didn't give a shit. They threw us under the bus so fast. Why? Because they don't care about fixing their position. They already are right. So
yeah, and like we agree with that. Maybe we can do a show and talk about that. We agree with that.
Sure.
But
because I think that's a problem. I get what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying.
I'm going to respond to your second closing with repeat the one thing. I want you to think about this. I'm just going to repeat this thing. It's written down. If Jeran had a justified belief that the Earth was planar and stationary, and then a 24-hour sun over his head in the south would not falsify either planar or stationary, it only does that if he is affirming the consequent and or did not have a justified belief that the Earth was planar and stationary. Therefore, why would anyone accept his new belief that if it's a globe, that's a justified one, considering his previous belief could not have been justified? And I want you to just think about it. I mean, I'll copy and paste it to you and just think about it, right? Because it's like, that's the issue. It's the actual route in which you're reading the conclusion.
Does it make sense that I would say that I thought that the South was a lie because of the map that I adhered to? Then I went looking for another map when I said, oh, if this map's falsified, what are we going to have? And then I said, oh, there is no other map. So there is only one flat Earth map and it has been falsified. So you're right. You could be saying something true, meaning that like, oh, well, Jeran, you don't know that there's another map that's going to come out in the future. You're right. I don't know that. There could be one, even though I've already kind of worked it out that there couldn't be one. But
brother,
right.
That's not even what I'm saying. I'm just saying that like you're putting way too much weight on projections and models in the first place, reifying them, internalizing them, and then, implementing a false dilemma, a false binary. That's what you're doing. But look, we're going to go back and forth forever. We should wrap it up.
As a moderator and a passive observer of this conversation, I'm walking away with hearing that you both had a significant moment on an airplane on the way back in which Austin was turned on also.
You heard that too? I was wondering what the hell was going on there.
Is that what I said?
Yeah, it's okay. We knew what you meant.
I was turned on too, man. I was turned on too. And
what did I say?
Yeah, you said, Austin, you said Jeran had I know you had a significant moment on the plane coming back, and I was turned on too. So yeah,
Yikes! I was trying to say.
Thanks for bringing that up, by the way. Thanks for bringing that up.
I was trying to say I was there too. I don't even know. I don't know.
It was pretty hilarious.
I could bring up that AI picture of us. That was pretty nice. I won't do that.
Well,
guys,
I will say, can we say this? Like, let's say a good faith thing about it is like, you see, like, look, we're not literally about to go to each other's house and fight. People need to chill out because it's just like, it's just way over the top. People need to chill out on all the sides. And I'm just going to throw that out there. And that was one of the objectives with this debate as well. So
Yeah, I'm the same
Thank you,
person. I
guys.
just have a different belief, and I would love to still be friends with the people as before. I get why they don't want that, but certainly neither one of us was paid off. Neither one of us lied. Neither one of us faked anything. So that's really what I would hope we come back and people are like, okay, they saw it. Let's now go forward with this. But we can't even. We're not even close to there. You got Vika and you got Banjo and you got literally half the community is.
But yeah, it's good. Good riddance to anyone that's not honest. Doesn't matter. If Jeran had a justified belief that the Earth was planar and stationary, then a 24-hour sun overhead in the south would not justify either planar or
Disagree
stationary.
with that.
It only does that if he's affirmed the consequent and/or did not have a justified belief that the Earth was planar and stationary. Therefore, why would anyone accept his new belief
I'm
that
not
it's a
asking
globe
anybody
as a
to accept
justified
it.
one, considering his previous belief could not have been justified? Hey, thank you so much for moderating, though.
Yeah,
Hey,
thanks,
no
Sean.
problem, guys.
I know we went over and we went over. You have any?
I'll just let
anything
it's
to say?
okay, man. I got to go pretty soon, but I'll just let you
I gotta
guys
go
know
too.
that I am excited that you guys went on this and that's creating this discussion because I was just talking with someone a few days ago about possibly in a couple of years going down to Antarctica myself.
Oh,
'Cause
by
I
the
would
way,
like to make the
when you
same
can go down
observation.
there, you can go down there the 14th. I'm sorry, 14th or 15th this year for only $21,000 to go on the ice marathon.
By the way, it's going to be
Nice.
really cool for like an hour.
It's not like 3.
It's
3
really cool
hours.
on the plane. If they'll just fly
The
you
plane,
over,
the plane
just
landing
do
is
it.
cool. The plane landing is cool, but then after that, but here's Austin. You know what our problem was? Sleep. If
Yeah, we didn't
would've-
sleep at all. I didn't sleep before I went. It was terrible.
Like, well, why do we have it?
Yeah.
We should have told them when they gave us the same hotel room. Like, no, we need our own hotel room. How the hell are we going to sleep?
Yeah,
I
it was
mean,
bad. It was all bad.
Not make
Well,
any sense.
Thank you, guys.
All right,
I've
thanks.
got about personally. I don't
Yeah,
know how
I
you
got
want to
you.
end this, Austin.
I'll let him end it. I'm
Yeah,
gonna head out.
I'll
Thanks, Austin.
end it, wrap it up in the session.
Okay.
Later.
Awesome. Thanks,
All
guys.
right, cool. Much love.
Yeah, you too.
All right. I'll go solo here. All right, cool. So you guys asked for a long waited. What we did clearly find out is that it seems like a super long discussion, lots of topics that would need to be discussed for a while, right? That's how I feel. This happens with Flat Earth a lot. I mean, like the linear distribution of electrical field and stuff like the other. Anyway, there are points that didn't really get covered. I'm sure he feels the same way, but there was the debate. I'm not gonna just I'm not gonna just talk a long time after the debate now that he doesn't get to keep saying anything. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. We are gonna do the VIP after show. We're actually way behind with everything, obviously now. So give me a minute to just kind of use the bathroom, maybe get a snack. And I'll come back up here. We're gonna do a VIP after show, and so we'll have a bunch of different legends in there. And you can hang out. So if you're VIP, only have access to that session. You may not even see it if you aren't VIP, but the VIP, you will see that there's a debate after show. We'll start it here shortly, and you can come in, and hopefully it didn't just I can change the time of it. Either way, we'll figure it out. Keep your eye out for the session for the after party, the debate after show, and then everyone can come in. I think we're gonna even let people pop on camera if they want to and just talk and hang out, kind of discuss the debate. We ask that everyone's cordial. So hopefully you enjoyed that. This is the end and the conclusion of day one, pretty much, except for the VIP hangout. So I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Tomorrow we'll start around 1:30. We'll have music and we'll get right back into it. So really excited about day 2. If you know some people that would enjoy it, tell them to come because they can still watch the replays of day 1. And cool. So hope you guys enjoyed day 1, and we will see the VIPs in just a moment. Peace.